I'm in the world of Naruto as a civil engineer. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26, Encounter with Orochimaru. The Chunin exam in Konoha village was not very good. It was basically the same as what Yamashita saw in the comics. The characters from all sides showed their magical powers, and they played a lot of tricks and cheating. Of course, these tricks were child's play in the eyes of those high-level ninjas, but as long as they met the requirements of the exam, those people would not point out these problems. Because this exam mainly tests the ability of ninjas to collect intelligence. It is worth mentioning that, after receiving his gift, the three little ones in Team 7 actually used it directly in this exam. Sakura first did the test questions, and then passed them to his friends through Den Mushi, and then filled in the answers. This process was very hidden, and even the teachers who were invigilating did not notice it. In addition to the slight changes in Team 7 because of him, Yamashita also found another person who he cared about. Karin. This orphan of the Uzumaki clan participated in this Chunin exam as a genin of Kusagakure village. Yamashita had really forgotten about this little girl with a strange physique before, but now that he had seen her, there was absolutely no possibility of missing her. If he remembered correctly, Karin was also an experimental staff member at Orochimaru's place, and her magical physique was also very precious to their company. Therefore, Yamashita was determined to get her. As for the Kusagakure village, if he gave her a little sweetness on the project, she would definitely be happy to send it to him. Yamashita was thinking about this, and suddenly, he found a strange person in the corner of the examination room. It was a woman with a forehead protector from the Sound Village on her head. She looked weak, and didn't look like she had any strength. However, from her temperament, Yamashita felt a chilly feeling. In addition, she was born in the Sound Village. This guy, most likely, should be Orochimaru in disguise, right? Yamashita immediately became interested and observed the person carefully without making any noise. This time, he found more suspicious things. In fact, the small ninja village is not very concerned about the basic knowledge of these ninjas. Although their ninjas may not be weaker than those of the big country, they are indeed much worse in some theoretical aspects. But the girl from the Kusagakure village did not cheat at all, and answered all the questions by herself. If the other party is not writing nonsense, then Yamashita dares to conclude that this guy's Orochimaru in disguise. Thinking of this, the corners of his mouth curled up and laughed. Good guy, you bumped into my hand, right? Today, I will let you Orochimaru get to know me well. He stood up and stood in front of the girl, and then suddenly changed his face in the other party's curious eyes, and shouted angrily, "Too much. You actually cheated." As soon as these words came out, the entire examination room was silent, and everyone cast curious eyes at that position. The exam has been going on for so long, and there are many candidates who were found to be cheating and expelled from the examination room. But the process is just an examiner pointing out the name of the candidate, and then the candidate leaves the seat. Not like now, as if stepping on the examiner's tail, making him so angry. The woman was also shocked. She didn't expect that she would be accused of cheating when she answered the question so honestly. "Examiner, I didn't." She wanted to explain, but was interrupted by Yamashita rudely, saying sternly, "Shut up. Are you teaching me how to do things? You mean I wronged you?" As soon as he said this, Orochimaru knew that this guy was deliberately framing him. Although he didn't know the reason, it was obviously not the time to explore the reason. Seeing that many examiners were looking at him, he could only suppress the anger in his heart, looked at Yamashita deeply, as if he wanted to remember his appearance, and then stood up obediently, and walked out of the examination room. "Oh my, I see that you are very angry, right? Come on, let's go out and talk and see what's wrong with you." Yamashita grabbed the woman's collar from behind, lifted her up, and walked out with her. Walking around a corner of the corridor, Yamashita dodged and left the entire examination building. Orochimaru only felt a flash in front of his eyes, and the scene in front of him changed directly, and he came to a forest. He was startled, and he suppressed the idea of attacking. He turned his head to look at Yamashita, who had put him down, and looked at him with a smile, and asked, "Teacher, what do you mean?" Yamashita looked at the fake look of Orochimaru, and said with a smile, "Okay, stop pretending here, Orochimaru. I have something to tell you." Orochimaru's face froze, and then he smiled as if relieved, and his tongue stuck out of his mouth, as if it was washing his face, and sliding across his cheek, really like a snake. "Interesting, it's really interesting. Just relying on you, you can actually find my disguise? How did you do it?" Orochimaru stopped pretending. His pupils became vertical pupils, and strands of murderous aura emanated from his body, as if he was going to rush up the next moment. He recognized the man in front of him. After all, this guy had caused such a big stir in the land of hot springs. It was hard for him not to know him. However, he was just a famous businessman after all, so he didn't take it seriously. However, he didn't expect that his disguise was actually seen through by the other party, which was beyond his expectation. It also made him very interested in the man in front of him. "Hey, don't be so impulsive. Have you forgotten how I brought you here? You don't think you can take me down here, do you?" Yamashita saw that Orochimaru was ready to move, so in order not to waste his efforts in the future, he directly reminded him. Hearing this, Orochimaru realized that the other party's ability to move himself directly to this place was very similar to the Flying Thunder God technique of the Fourth Hokage. Although he didn't know why this Konoha forbidden technique was obtained by the other party, if the other party really learned that ninjutsu, then he really had no way to deal with the other party. Even as one of the three ninjas, he had no way to deal with a powerful ninjutsu like the Flying Thunder God technique, which was both offensive and defensive. In fact, before he defected to Konoha, the strength of the Fourth Hokage Minato Namikaze had surpassed his. Thinking of this, his snake pupils turned wildly in his eye sockets, looking for the mark of the Flying Thunder God technique. Although the Flying Thunder God technique was extremely powerful, it was not completely without weaknesses. If you want to travel through time and space, you need to leave mark at the destination. And if you make an effective plan for those marks, it is possible to seize the flaws and defeat the user of the Flying Thunder God technique. Chapter 27, Yamashita Kenji's Invitation. "No need to look for it, Mr. Orochimaru. My Flying Thunder God technique is not quite the same as what you know," Yamashita said with a smile. He did not lie to Orochimaru. All the ninjutsu given to him by the system were the most perfect ninjutsu modified by the system. Take Flying Thunder God technique as an example. This ninjutsu was developed by the second generation Hokage, but in the hands of the second generation Hokage, this ninjutsu needs to be sealed when it is activated. Although it is very cost effective to only need to seal 2 seals to activate such a powerful ninjutsu, it still wastes a little time after all, and even if you can do 7 seals in 1 second, it will give the opponent a hint, making this ninjutsu that could have flashed silently appear flawed. Then, this ninjutsu was passed to the hands of the 4th generation Hokage, who continued to develop it, directly omitting the step of sealing, greatly enhancing its stealth and mobility, and making it break out of the name of Yellow Flash in the Ninja War. In fact, at this time, the Flying Thunder God technique was already very unsolvable. If you have to find a shortcoming, it should be that you need to mark it when you flash. In actual combat, it is very likely to be targeted by others, just like the battle between the 4th Hokage and the Raikage brothers. When it came to Yamashita, this ninjutsu was optimized again, because of the improvement of the system. The point of optimization is the change of the mark. Compared with a conspicuous mark before, Yamashita can now directly imprint the mark in the space. It is an invisible mark that no one can find, and of course it cannot be erased. Because of this, Yamashita is used to imprinting marks nearby every time he goes to a new place, when he was in the Rain Country and in Konoha Village. Therefore, it is of course futile for Orochimaru to find the mark he made in this place. After searching for a while, Orochimaru did not find any mark, and could not help but look at the person in front of him with some surprise, and he became more interested in the other party. "So, what do you want to do by finding me?" Orochimaru asked. Yamashita said, "Of course I want to invite you to join my company." Orochimaru was stunned on the spot. He had never thought that the other party had gone to such great lengths to find him for such a thing. Our Yamashita Industrial Company is very strong and is one of the best in the entire ninja world. At the same time, we are also eager to recruit talents. We are very eager for those with outstanding talents in the ninja world. And Orochimaru, you are the talent our company needs. Yamashita said enthusiastically, and his sincere look did not seem to be a lie. Talents with outstanding abilities? What you want is my immortality technique? Orochimaru thought about it and said a possibility. No, 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 of course not. Yamashita shook his head repeatedly, and his words seemed to be full of contempt for the so-called immortality technique. Our company is an ambitious company, and we are not interested in things that are only suitable for a small number of people. Then what are you talking about? What we are looking at is your ability in biomedicine. Yamashita said directly. We understand that you have done relevant experiments when you were in Konoha village and have made many achievements. Although we do not want you to rashly conduct human experiments and treat life as worthless, your achievements cannot be erased. Therefore, we sincerely invite you to come to our company to study the most cutting-edge drugs in the entire ninja world and make contributions to the vast number of people. Yamashita's impassioned speech painted a picture of Orochimaru's fame that would be passed down to future generations. If it were an ordinary person, he would probably just bow down and join the other party's army. However, the person standing in front of Yamashita was Orochimaru. Orochimaru looked at the other party with a strange expression and said in disbelief, "Contribute to the people? Are you kidding? Who is he? Cold Lord Orochimaru. That is a guy who treats human life as worthless. Why would the other party think that such a thing is meaningful to him? Hehe, of course it's not just that." Yamashita said, "We can also provide Mr. Orochimaru with the best experimental environment in the entire ninja world, as well as countless financial support. Mr. Orochimaru took refuge in the land of fields. Isn't it because the other daimyo can provide you with funds? Here, I can give you a promise. As long as you follow the rules and regulations of our laboratory, we can also provide you with what the land of fields can provide you. We can also provide you with what the land of fields cannot provide you." Yamashita's words were full of confidence, which was the confidence of being the richest man in the ninja world. With this condition, Orochimaru began to seriously think about the other party's proposal. In theory, the other party's proposal is indeed good, but it is still very unpleasant to obey the other party's rules and regulations. According to the other party's previous words, it is obvious that, if he really joins the other party's team, then human experiments should be impossible, which will have a negative effect on his own research. Moreover, now is not the time to consider those things. His task in the recent period is to bury his teacher. I will consider this matter. After Orochimaru left this sentence, he wanted to leave directly. This identity can no longer be used. It seems that he needs to change his identity. Okay, Mr. Orochimaru, our invitation is very sincere. I hope you can consider it. Yamashita did not stop him, but continued. In addition, no matter what purpose you come to Konoha for, I hope you can protect your safety and don't be impulsive and do something that makes both of us regretful. Wait until this Chunin exam is over. I will find you again. At that time, I hope you can give me a clear answer. Orochimaru did not stay, but flashed and disappeared directly. Yamashita had a smile on his lips. Since he had discovered the other party would definitely not escape from his palm. However, before that, Orochimaru still had to complete his mission and send away the third Hokage. For him, the dead third Hokage is more useful than the living third Hokage. It seems that it is time for him to go to the old place of the Uzumaki clan and obtain the mask that can summon the god of death. To some extent, an armless Orochimaru is more valuable to him. After thinking about it, he used ninjutsu and returned to the examination hall again. At this time, the written test was over. In the entire examination hall, there was no one else except Ibiki. He adjusted his mood, pretended to be anxious, walked to the other party in 3 or 2 steps, and said, "Mr. Ibiki, something happened. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 28 Unexpected Changes. You mean, the ninja you took out was pretended by a person with the strength of a Jonin? Ibiki said seriously. Yes, if I didn't have some strength, I might have been defeated by the other party, Yamashita said with a lingering fear. Ibiki nodded seriously and said, this information is very important. Thank you, Mr. Yamashita. Kakashi should be here soon. Please wait here for a while. I need to go out for a while, he said and left the classroom directly. Orochimaru, you were exposed in the original work anyway. Now I'm a little ahead of time, so it should be okay, right? Yamashita thought wickedly in his heart, and then picked up the test paper on the table and read it one by one. Because of the last question, this test paper actually has no meaning to Ibiki and others, but for him, it is an effective way to understand what these ninjas think about technology. And he can also select suitable talents to join his company based on the answers given by these little ninjas. Which little ninja wrote this? It's really nonsense. That's right, saying technology is only something that people without talent would study is really too narrow-minded. This Narashikamaru is just as I expected. He has a lot of knowledge. Although some of his ideas are a bit naive, he has already shown his mature thinking. This time, we must bring this guy into the company. Yamashita looked at the test papers one by one. Some of them made him sneer, while others made his eyes light up, and he felt that they were very insightful. Sure enough, this world is not very averse to technology. There are still some people who have an open attitude towards it, and this is actually enough. When the technology of his company explodes, those ninjas will know that technology is something that can bring happiness to everyone more than ninjutsu. Yamashita saw the content written on a test paper and couldn't help but be stunned. It's not that the content on this paper is so profound, but for a ninja, being able to answer such an answer is already very difficult. Seeing the name on the test paper, Yamashita understood. Karin. If it was this little girl, it wouldn't be surprising. Being able to be the manager of Orochimaru's base, the little girl's talent in science is of course unquestionable. In this way, he has more reason to take this little girl in his pocket. Mr. Yamashita, I heard that you found the intruder? At this time, Kakashi rushed over and asked with concern. Yamashita nodded and said, that ninja is quite powerful. I'm afraid he didn't have any good intentions when he came to Konoha village this time. He finished reading all the test papers, and there were not many answers that could arouse his interest. It seems that, although everyone is not very opposed to technology, it is not necessarily that they pay much attention to it. As for the answers to Naruto and Sasuke, it's better not to say. Yamashita also gave up the idea of taking the two into his pocket and let them develop like in the original work. Thinking about it, he said to Kakashi, that's it, Mr. Kakashi, there's no point in you thinking about this here. Anyway, the matter has been reported, so let the Hokage worry about it. Let's go, I'll treat you to a barbecue, Yamashita said, without waiting for Kakashi to say anything, and directly pulled him away. Although there was a little episode during the written test, the Chunin exam was still carried out as planned. The Death Forest Battle Royale, with Red Bean as the chief examiner, also officially began a few days later. As Yamashita expected, Orochimaru did not make any trouble during this period. It seems that next, it should be the same as in the original plot. In the Death Forest, Orochimaru planted a curse seal on Sasuke, and then in the final battle, he and the third Hokage will draw swords. As one of the examiners, Yamashita leaned on the tree branch, looking bored, and Kakashi stood beside Yamashita, fulfilling his duties as a guard conscientiously. Don't be so worried. The guys in your team are pretty good. They should have no problem passing this exam, Yamashita said boredly. I hope so, Kakashi said, but I don't know why. My heart is always beating, as if something bad is going to happen. Yamashita looked at Kakashi with some surprise. He didn't expect this guy's sixth sense to be so accurate. He could actually predict that his team members would not be so successful in this exam. Could it be that a man's sixth sense is so accurate? Boom. At this moment, a huge roar suddenly erupted in the forest, followed by smoke and dust. In the smoke and dust, a huge yellow monster roared to the sky and suddenly appeared. What? Everyone present was shocked. Some looked at the yellow monster that appeared out of thin air in horror, and their faces showed horror involuntarily. What's going on? What is that thing? As the chief examiner, Hangdao didn't expect such a change to happen. Looking at the monster, she couldn't help but ask. That's the one-tailed Shikaku? As a well-informed ninja, Kakashi recognized the identity of the monster at a glance and immediately felt that the situation was extremely difficult. As a tailed beast that can be ranked alongside the nine-tailed, the strength of this thing is not exaggerated. If it is not handled properly, it is possible that the tragedy of the nine-tailed rebellion many years ago will happen again. Red Bean, send someone to the Hokage building for help. The rest of you, follow me into the examination room to take the candidates out. Kakashi ordered directly, and at the same time, looked at Yamashita Kenji and said, Mr. Yamashita, it is very dangerous here. Please return to Konoha village first. Yamashita did not expect that things would turn out like this. The one tail would actually appear in the second stage of the Chunin exam, which did not appear in the original work. And more importantly, this time the Sand Village and Orochimaru did not reach a cooperation. So why did the tailed beast appear earlier? Is there something else that he has not considered? Yamashita didn't know Orochimaru's plan, but he knew that there was no point in him staying here. With his current strength, he could deal with ordinary ninjas with high power and low defense, but he really had no way to deal with such a big guy. So, he nodded, turned around and left, walking towards the direction of Konoha village. Chapter 29, Surprise Attack. At the Hokage building, the Hokage also got the relevant information at the first time and quickly arranged all the members of the Anbu and the members of the Sealing class to support the Death Forest. After making all the arrangements, the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen stood in front of the French window of the Hokage's office, looking far away in the direction of the Death Forest. There, a yellow beast like a raccoon cat was destroying madly and fighting with the ninjas who blocked him. His mind was flying, thinking about the possible reasons for this incident. Could it be that the Kazekage guy was unwilling to give up and wanted to provoke a war again? Then, he gave up this idea because he knew that the Sand Village and even the entire Wind Country had invested most of their energy in the so-called South to North Water Diversion Plan, and they couldn't get away to do such things, and this kind of thing was not good for them at all, so this matter might not be done by them. But if it wasn't them, who did it? Who was it? The third Hokage unconsciously thought of the mysterious ninja that Yamashita Kenji had met before. Could it be that person? At this time, a ninja hurried into the Hokage's office and said anxiously, Hokage, there was an explosion in the village. Countless ninjas from outside the village broke in and slaughtered civilians crazily. What? The third Hokage was shocked and was about to say something, but he found that the ninja in front of him suddenly flicked his wrist a few times, and several shurikens were thrown out like lightning. Sarutobi Hiruzen was also an experienced veteran. Although he was a little distracted by the sudden news, he recovered very quickly and dodged the shurikens. Then, he quickly came to the man and subdued his hands. He said sternly, "Who are you?" Hehe. The man's sneak attack did not work, but he was not frustrated. Instead, he laughed miserably and then suddenly opened his mouth. Countless poisonous snakes rushed out of his throat and attacked the third Hokage's face. Sarutobi Hiruzen was startled and quickly distanced himself from the other party. At the same time, he raised his sword and used kunai to cut down several venomous snakes that were chasing him. Then he looked at the man in front of him with some seriousness and said in disbelief, "Orochimaru? Hehe, teacher, you finally remembered me?" The man smiled miserably, and then the skin on his face began to fall off. A moment later, a fair-skinned feminine man appeared in front of the other party. "I'm sorry, teacher. I originally wanted to wait a little longer and play with you, but I didn't expect that the plan changed, so I can only meet you in advance." Orochimaru smiled and said, "I'll come and see you off." Boom. Yamashita Kenji had just returned to Konoha village when he found that the Hokage building was actually covered by a layer of purple light curtain, and at the four corners of this light curtain, there were four strange looking ninjas standing. Yamashita blinked his eyes. If he was not mistaken, that thing should be the four purple flame formation that was supposed to rise in the final examination room, right? This barrier formation is said to prevent outsiders from entering. It is the stage that Orochimaru prepared for his teacher to leave. In other words, now there should be only Orochimaru and the third Hokage in that formation. This duel between teacher and student started so abruptly. Yamashita thought about it and shrugged his shoulders. It didn't matter. As long as there was no deviation in the general direction, there was no need to pay attention to the details. After feeling the mark he had left on Orochimaru and finding that he could feel it clearly, he didn't care. Just when he wanted to find a safe place to hide until the end, Yamashita felt that the atmosphere around him suddenly became solemn. He squinted his eyes and felt the passers-by around him who were looking at him. Yamashita was also clear in his mind. These people might be targeting him. And the source of these enemies, without a surprise, must be the people of the root. It's really interesting. At this time of internal and external troubles, Danzo can't even stand united against the outside world, and he has to target himself at this time. No wonder netizens are willing to let this guy take the blame. There is a reason for this. Yamashita calmly changed the direction of his actions and turned into a street where there were basically no people. The people here have basically been evacuated, and the whole street seems deserted. In this way, it seems that Yamashita and the few ninjas who are following him have become very abrupt. He stood in the middle of the street, turned around, looked at the ninjas, and said, "Then, let's make it clear. Even at this time, are you going to catch me or kill me?" Those people stepped forward and said, "If you disrespect Danzo, you will die. Now, your bodyguard is gone, and those who know what's good for you will go back with us. Otherwise, we can't guarantee that your hands and feet will be intact." Yamashita counted the number of the other side, about 7 or 8 people. Judging from their momentum, they should be a few Jonins leading a few Chunins. To be honest, sending such a Linoop to capture me is already a big deal. However, this Linoop is not good enough for me. In the words of someone, I can't beat the tailed beasts, but can I beat you? Yamashita took out a scroll from his pocket, opened it, and grasped the word knife in it, and a short knife appeared in his hand. "Okay, since you insist, let me bury you here." As soon as these words came out, the ninjas in front of him couldn't stay still. The other party looked like they were not going to surrender. In this case, don't blame them for not showing mercy. Thinking of this, everyone rushed up together, wanting to arrest the other party as soon as possible. However, what they didn't expect was that Yamashita in front of them actually disappeared directly in front of everyone, and no trace could be found. The instant body technique? No, it's too fast. The instant body technique can't be that fast. Just as they were confused, blood suddenly spurted out of a ninja's neck. The artery was actually cut directly. He collapsed to the ground in a daze and helpless, holding his neck, and there was no sound after a moment. Everyone looked at the ninja whose life was gradually disappearing in horror, and a chill rushed from the tailbone to the top of the head. Chapter 30 World Line Convergence. When the third ninja fell for no reason, fear spread throughout the team, and their defeat was inevitable. Normally, the ninjas of the route had all been through brutal training, and it was very difficult to make them mentally collapse. However, Yamashita's technique was beyond their understanding, leaving them with a lot of power, but nowhere to use it, so their failure was natural. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. There were another continuous flash, and those ninjas fell to the ground one after another, and finally only one person was left on the scene. This person was surprisingly calm. Although his face was sweating, he did not flee in panic. Instead, after observing for a while, he said in disbelief, "Is this the Flying Thunder God technique?" Yamashita's figure suddenly appeared, with the short blade in his hand still dripping with blood, but his body was clean. This strong contrast, on the contrary, set off his powerful strength. "Did you see it? Now that you know what ninjutsu I use, do you still want to resist?" Yamashita said lightly. "No, this is impossible. Flying Thunder God technique is the secret technique of Akanoha village. How can an outsider like you learn it?" The ninja asked directly with an unbelievable look. Yamashita smiled and was about to answer, but suddenly felt something. He shot a shuriken at the ninja, and his figure flashed and disappeared. Bang! A thick smoke appeared, and the ninja was hit by the shuriken, and turned into a wooden stake. Then, not far away, Yamashita's blade was already against the ninja's neck. "Danzo-sama will not let you go," the ninja said hatefully, and then Yamashita cut his neck. The strength of the Jonin seems to be very ordinary. Yamashita solved the ninja who came to block him in a few seconds. He scratched his head and felt that the battle was too easy. He didn't even use any strength, and the opponent fell down. This is of course natural. With Yamashita's current attainment of the Flying Thunder God technique, which is higher than that of the fourth Hokage, he would be defeated, even if he could deal with a few Chunin and Jonin. After all, the fourth Hokage Minato Namikaze directly killed his way through the entire Third Ninja World War with just the Flying Thunder God technique and the Rasengan. He wiped the blood off the short blade in his hand casually, and then sealed it into the scroll again. He checked the surrounding scene, and after confirming that he had left nothing to prove his identity, he left the place directly. Although the first person to be suspected of the death of these ninjas who besieged him must be himself, Danzo would definitely not shamelessly say such a thing under the water. He is not an unknown person. As long as the other party dares to admit that he sent people to besiege him, he dares to prevent the other party from leaving Konoha. Perhaps, because of the existence of this chosen one, Danzo should not be able to leave Konoha now. While the crisis was resolved at the foot of the mountain, the battle at the Hokage building was in full swing. The Hokage building was now in a state of disrepair. It was originally the tallest building in Konoha village, but now it was cut in half. The building was covered with tall trees, and there was water several meters deep below. At the top of the building, the third Hokage had been pierced through the chest by a long sword, and blood was dripping down the blade. It was obvious that his life had come to an end. In front of him, Orochimaru, the first Hokage, and the second Hokage stood in front of him, looking a little embarrassed. It was obvious that the third Hokage's attack made them unable to cope with it. Objectively speaking, the third Hokage was called the strongest Hokage of all generations. Although there was a lot of water, he was able to defend against the complete form of Orochimaru, as well as the weakened versions of Hashirama Senju and Tobirama Senju by himself, and he was worthy of the name of Hokage. Yamashita saw this scene from afar. He saw the third Hokage, who was in his twilight years, cast Shiki Fujin at the last moment of his life, and summoned the god of death. He sacrificed the first Hokage, the second Hokage, and Orochimaru's hands, as well as his own soul, to the god of death, and then calmly accepted death. He was unconsciously filled with emotion. Although he had read so many analyzers and conspiracy theories in his previous life, he knew that the kind third Hokage did not seem to be so kind, and his feelings for Naruto might not be so pure. However, at least at this moment, he died to protect Konoha, and he was worthy of the name of the third Hokage. Seeing the third Hokage fall down, Orochimaru, whose soul was sealed in both hands, fell to the ground weakly and was taken away by the four Otonin. Yamashita knew that this emergency should end like this. The next thing to consider should be Shukaku in the Forest of Death. Naruto had not met Jiraiya at this time, so he naturally could not summon Gamabunta. This Shukaku could only be dealt with by the ninjas of Konoha village themselves. However, after all, it is the largest ninja village in the ninja world, and there is no problem facing Shukaku, which has been weakened to the extreme and has obvious defects. The ninjas of the ceiling class cast spells together, summoning chains to tie up Shukaku's limbs, and then Kakashi flashed to the top of Shukaku's head and woke up the sleeping Gaara, and Shukaku returned to Gaara's body again. Seeing that the matter was settled, Yamashita went straight back to his residence. Konoha looked miserable after the disaster. Although Orochimaru's attack did not cause as much harm as in the original work, the villagers could not help but feel sad after all that the Hokage who had led Konoha for decades died. Of course, most of the villagers were sad. As for how many people in the upper echelons were secretly happy, and how many people were happy, it was unknown. After interrogation, it was found that Gaara was also a victim. Not long after entering the Forest of Death, he was controlled by illusion and forced to summon Shukaku from his body, which led to the subsequent events. As you can imagine, this is another confusing account. Konoha village will condemn the destruction of their village by the Sand Village Jinchuriki, while Sand Village will condemn Konoha village for not being able to guarantee the arrangement of their contestants. This matter is a bit of a quibble. Of course, this kind of thing is not the most troublesome thing for Konoha. The most troublesome thing is that the position of Hokage in the village is vacant, and there is no suitable candidate for Hokage for a while. Although there is a person in the senior management who is jumping up and down and wants to take over the position of Hokage, those senior management also know that the most important thing for the village now is to stabilize. If this person takes office, it will be a disaster for the village. So, the senior management of Konoha turned their eyes to the ninja who had just returned from traveling outside. One of the three people, Toad Sage, Jiraiya. Chapter 31 Orochimaru takes it. Yamashita no longer has much interest in the various things in Konoha village, and now the village is in a mess. It seems that the previous cooperation will have to be postponed until the next person in power in Konoha village comes to power, before it can continue. These are all things that had been expected, and Yamashita is not in a hurry. However, the matter of finding a little ninja to intern in his company has been decided. Anyway, this kind of thing is not a big deal. It is just a special task, so the village's top leaders directly agreed. So, when Kakuzu returned, Yamashita asked him to take the Inoshika Chow team and Karen to the Kingdom of Hot Springs. However, Yamashita did not return to the Kingdom of Hot Springs with them, but stayed in Konoha village for 2 more days, and then directly performed the Flying Thunder God technique, and went to another place. This is a dark cave underground. The roads in the cave are connected in all directions. At first glance, it is the base of some secret organization. And Yamashita came directly to this cave, a secret room. The room is very simple, with only one person lying on the bed, and it is Orochimaru himself. Hey, look who I see. Isn't this one of the 3 ninjas, Cold Lord Orochimaru? It's only been a few days since we last met. How come you're so upset? Yamashita looked at Orochimaru with a smile and said. At this moment, Orochimaru was indeed in a very bad state. Although there were no obvious injuries on his body, his face was even paler, just like a piece of white paper. His hands were wrapped in bandages, and he looked like he couldn't move at all. You really came? Orochimaru said coldly. He had a premonition that the other party might have done something to him, otherwise the other party would not have let him go so easily. However, no matter how he checked later, he didn't find anything unusual, so he had to give up. Now it seems that things are really as he expected. This guy marked himself and can come to him anytime and anywhere. Why do you want to fight me? There was a dangerous aura in Orochimaru's pupils. Although the souls of his hands were extracted, he felt that he had no ability to resist, even if he had seen the wrong person. No, Mr. Orochimaru, you misunderstood. Yamashita said, you still have a confrontational mindset and think that I will pose a threat to you. This is wrong. I still say what I said before. Our company invites you to join our company with a sincere attitude, not to kill you. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes and said, even if my strength is declining now, are you still willing to invite me to join? Strength? It seems that you still have a deep misunderstanding of us. Yamashita said with emotion. Among the researchers in our company, only a small number of them are capable, and most of them are just ordinary people without strength. We invited you, not because of your strength, but because we are impressed by your scientific research ability. As long as your scientific research ability is good enough, then even if you don't have any strength, we will invite you to join the company. Seeing the other party say this, Orochimaru was silent for a long time, and then he said, okay, I promise you, I can join your company, of course. The premise is to give me enough freedom and money, so that I can do the experiments I want to do. Yamashita smiled and said, don't worry about this. As long as you abide by our company's regulations, and don't do experiments that violate the bottom line, our company is willing to cover all the expenses of your experiments. Then, the two discussed some details of the cooperation. In fact, after the barbaric stage at the beginning of the experiment, Orochimaru's experiment has been on the right track. In addition to some people who are really gifted and can allow him to conduct human experiments, his other experiments rarely need to use a large number of human lives to pile up, and the success rate is also greatly increased. Not to mention, whether it is Yamashita's company or Orochimaru himself, they have certain cloning technology, which can give birth to a complete body without a soul in a very short time. Even if some human experiments are really needed, those things can be used as substitutes. Yamashita's moral standards are not that high. As long as real human lives are not used to fill in the experimental data, then anything is fine. After the discussion, the two agreed on the relocation of Orochimaru's base. Orochimaru directly rejected Yamashita's request to find someone to help relocate the base, saying that he could do it alone, and asked Yamashita to arrange it in the land of hot water. Yamashita didn't have any idea about this. The other party didn't need help, so he didn't have to work hard. So, after saying hello to Orochimaru, he flashed away and left the base. At this time, a ninja with glasses walked out of a dark room in the room and said to Orochimaru, "Lord Orochimaru, we didn't find the mark engraved by the other party. I suspect that the other party should have engraved the mark directly in the space through some means. We don't have much research data on space ninjutsu, so it's difficult to find the other party's mark, and there is no way to erase it." In a few words, the other party directly pointed out the key point of Yamashita's Flying Thunder God technique. Obviously, if space ninjutsu was not rare in the entire ninja world, the other party might have already figured out how to erase Yamashita's mark. In the past 2 days, Orochimaru has not made no progress. I guessed it. Orochimaru said gloomily. The opponent's improved Flying Thunder God technique is too strange. There is really no way to crack it in a short period of time. Let's leave it like this for now. Fortunately, the opponent does not seem to have any malicious intentions. This is also good news for us. Kabuto Yakushi said, "Lord Orochimaru, are you really going to go to that Yamashita Industrial Company? Although the opponent's strength is indeed strong, we don't know the opponent's real purpose. The news from the land of hot water is too strange. There are even some outrageous information such as struggle for the happiness of the people of the ninja world and long live the unity of the people of the ninja world." Obviously, as the natives of this world, Orochimaru and Kabuto Yakushi really can't understand Yamashita's noble sentiments, the simple desire to make everyone have enough food and warm clothes. They still analyzed Yamashita's ideas from the perspective of interests, and naturally the conclusions they came to were all diametrically opposed. Let's put this matter aside for now. Anyway, as of now, the opponent has no malicious intentions, and there is no need for us to get to the bottom of it. Orochimaru said, "The most important thing now is to recover my hands. Have you found Tsunade's whereabouts?" "Yes, she is in Vegas, the gambling city of Hot Spring Country." "Is she there? Should I say it is there? Get ready, we are going to meet old friends." "Yes." Chapter 32. Two people with similar interests. Kenji Yamashita returned to Konoha village and was about to say goodbye to Kakashi and others and return home, but he unexpectedly learned a piece of news. Jiraiya rejected the request of the Konoha high-level officials to let him be the Hokage, but instead agreed to bring back Tsunade, who is also one of the 3 ninjas, to be the Hokage. And now Tsunade is in the gambling city, Vegas, of the land of hot springs. In other words, Kenji Yamashita and Jiraiya are actually on the same way. Therefore, in order to ensure the safety of his Konoha ally, Kakashi hopes that Yamashita can go to the land of hot springs with Jiraiya. Firstly, to ensure his safety, and secondly, as a local snake, Yamashita can also help Jiraiya to a certain extent. Yamashita didn't expect Tsunade to be in his own country, but it makes sense to think about it. After all, the gambling city, Vegas, in his own country can be said to be the gambling center of the ninja world at this stage, and Tsunade is a well-known big fat sheep in the ninja world, so it is reasonable for her to be there. He thought about it, and agreed to the other party's request. Although his return to China might be delayed, he didn't lose anything. Besides, he could also associate with a legendary ninja like Jiraiya, which was also a good thing. But he didn't expect that besides Naruto, Sasuke would go with Jiraiya to find Tsunade. "Hello, Mr. Yamashita." Sasuke bowed respectfully to Yamashita. Yamashita scratched his head and said, "Sasuke, are you going with me?" As he said that, he looked at Jiraiya, not knowing what the other party meant. Jiraiya shrugged and said, "It's the same, if you drive 1 sheep or 2 sheep. This kid wants to go so stubbornly, and I can't do anything about it." "Mr. Yamashita, don't worry, I will be very honest on this mission, and won't do anything out of line." Sasuke said honestly. "No, Sasuke, you are not such a well-behaved person. Where is your rebellion? Where is your hatred?" In Yamashita's impression, Sasuke is a guy with a very positive idea. He can do anything to achieve his goal. It's rare to see him so well behaved like now. In fact, this is all because Yamashita was influenced by Sasuke's character in the later period. In the early period, Sasuke was still a cold, but well-behaved and warm-hearted child. If it weren't for the fact that his psychology was a little distorted by the oppression of hatred, and the people in Konoha village were unwilling to help him improve his strength, he wouldn't have reached the point later. At least at this stage, Sasuke can still be called a good boy. Yamashita shrugged indifferently and said, "It doesn't matter. Anyway, it's your Konoha's mission. I'm just along for the ride." Then, everyone rushed to the land of hot water. Along the way, Yamashita and Jiraiya had a good chat. As a great writer in the ninja world, Jiraiya still has some ink in his belly. Yamashita, with the ups and downs of the business world for so many years, plus the memory of his previous life, his knowledge is naturally extraordinary. The conversation between the two people is very compatible. However, as the conversation deepened, the topics of the two people's conversation became more and more distorted, gradually developing in the direction of being inappropriate for children. NTR, cuckold, coercion, tentacles, SM, bestiality. Mr. Yamashita, your knowledge is really profound. Even I, who have been immersed in this for many years, am as immature as a primary school student in front of you. These ideas of yours are very precious materials and wealth for my literary creation. I wonder if you have other topics, Mr. Yamashita. You can talk about them together and share them with me, which can also help me increase my knowledge. Jiraiya put down the paper and pen in his hand, relaxed his hands, and then said to Yamashita with some emotion. From the conversation just now, Jiraiya felt that he had been enlightened. He felt that his previous novels were completely trivial, childish, and still stayed on the surface, and did not portray the psychological activities of the characters in the book more deeply. The plot conflict was too superficial, not intense at all, just like boiled water, without any taste. Mr. Yamashita in front of him was obviously an expert. Apart from other things, the different plot types that he told him were eye-opening. Not to mention the story of Genin Kurokichi that he told him, the rich inner characterization, abundant emotions, and fierce plot conflicts of the protagonist were the only ones he had ever seen in his life, and were much better than his Intimate Paradise. Just a short conversation made him feel that his story-making ability had greatly improved. If he wrote another book, it would definitely be much better than the previous one. These are all superficial ideas, not worth mentioning, Yamashita said politely. How could it be? Mr. Yamashita's thinking is really the only one I have ever seen in my life. If Mr. Yamashita is willing to enter the literary circle, he must be a great writer. No way. You're welcome. Okay. I say you two, are you done yet? Naruto really couldn't bear it anymore and angrily interrupted the conversation between the two. You two have been talking about those weird things from the beginning. Do you really not take us seriously at all? Sasuke nodded in agreement. These two old people are really a bit too much. Their two children are still here, but they are talking about such explosive topics, almost making their little flagpoles stand up. What kind of thing is this? Ahem. Sorry, I was too immersed in the conversation and forgot about you two. That, Mr. Yamashita, if there is a chance in the future, I will still go to the land of hot springs to bother you and discuss relevant matters with you. Jiraiya was a little embarrassed at this time, stopped talking, and said to Yamashita, "You are welcome anytime." Yamashita smiled and said, "It just so happens that there is an old acquaintance of yours in our company. I believe that, when the time comes, you two will be very excited to meet." Really? I wonder which acquaintance it is. Secret, you will know when the time comes, Yamashita said mysteriously. Mr. Yamashita. At this time, Sasuke said, "I wonder if what you said to me in Konoha village before is true." Yamashita looked at him and said, "Of course it is true. I never lie." Sasuke was silent for a moment, then made up his mind and said, "I heard that Mr. Yamashita has a few internship places. I wonder if I can go there to participate in the internship?" Obviously, Sasuke is still very concerned about the news of his brother. Yamashita doesn't want to tell him that he will enter the other party's company. At that time, after a long time of getting along, the other party should also give in. "Go to our company?" Yamashita said with some surprise. "Then you have to think about it. Our company, as an industrial company, will not increase the strength of its members. If you go, I can only guarantee that you will not lack money, but your strength may not grow. It doesn't matter. Sasuke was silent for a moment and said, anyway, no one in Konoha village is willing to teach me. Anyway, I practice alone. It's the same wherever I go. Chapter 33 Company Vision. Seeing Sasuke like this, Yamashita didn't know what to say. In fact, in the original work, Sasuke's defection was inevitable. There was no one in Konoha village who could teach Sasuke anything. Even Kakashi was willing, but unable to do so. Sasuke wanted to worship Jiraiya as his master, but was rejected by him. In addition, the village itself did not trust the Uchiha clan, and would not give him those forbidden techniques. At this time, if Sasuke wanted to continue to improve his strength to catch up with his brother, there was no other way, except to defect to Orochimaru. Obviously, Sasuke seemed to have expected it now. Although he was not mentally distorted by Naruto for the time being, it was not far away. Sasuke, you. Naruto didn't expect Sasuke to have such a plan. He spoke out quickly, trying to dissuade him, but was interrupted by Yamashita Kenji. Okay, kid, I agree to your request. Really? Yamashita nodded and continued, however, I still want to say one more thing. What our company pursues is to seek welfare for the people of the entire ninja world. If you don't have such pursuits and ideals, and still adhere to your conservative ideas as a ninja, then our company has the right to dismiss you at any time. Sasuke nodded. At this time, no matter what he thought, he must agree directly. Yamashita smiled, knowing that the other party might not really agree, but as long as the other party was willing to pretend, that would be good. What's more, Sasuke himself is not a bad person. Of course, you may not fail to increase your strength in our company. At least, I can show you how technology can help a person. Yamashita deliberately kept it a secret, and then apologized to himself. I'm sorry, Mr. Jiraiya, you will need to talk to the people of Konoha about Sasuke later. Jiraiya looked at Sasuke deeply, and then said, it doesn't matter, Sasuke will have his own way to go. Sasuke, are you really going to go with Mr. Yamashita? Naruto asked reluctantly. Naruto, I have my own decision. As a friend, I hope you can understand me. Sasuke said solemnly. Yeah, I got it. I'll tell Sakura about it. Don't worry, I'll take good care of her. Hehe. Naruto, what's wrong with your disgusting expression? I'm telling you not to mess around. Okay, both of you. Yamashita separated the two of them helplessly and said, don't be so gay. It's not like you can't see each other anymore. We still need Sasuke to help with the projects in Konoha village. Sasuke, let me first explain our company's philosophy to you. Try to remember it. When you get to the company, someone will explain these things to you. Then, Yamashita told Sasuke about their company's philosophy and vision. Speaking of which, when Yamashita first crossed over to this world, he didn't have any specific goals. He just wanted to live a stable life in this world where gods fight. It would be even better if he had some extra money. However, as the company grew, he saw more and more things that were against his morals, which made him, who was originally easygoing, feel a sense of mission and responsibility. No matter what, he was born under the red flag and grew up in the spring breeze. As a descendant of the red flag, if he simply wanted to eat and wait for death, or dominate the ninja world, after traveling through time, his vision would be too small. At this time, he remembered that he was originally a hot-blooded boy. What position you are in has your responsibilities. Because of the above reasons, the vision he set for his company is to bring happiness to the people of the ninja world, and his ambition is to dedicate his life to the liberation of the people of the ninja world. Although not all the people in his company may agree with this ambition, they will definitely respect him for having such an ambition. And the company has its own leader, and it will definitely move in that direction. Just like now, when he described his vision to Sasuke, the three of them looked unbelievable, thinking that his words were all fantasy. However, thinking of what Yamashita had done in the land of hot springs, they had a little expectation in their hearts. What if, Mr. Yamashita, it turns out that your ideals are so great. I originally thought that you were just a simple genius businessman. Now it seems that I underestimated you. Jiraiya said with emotion. Although the son of prophecy mentioned by the great toad sage could not be the other party, it was not an exaggeration to call him a saint based on what he had just said. If the other party really had unity of knowledge and action, then the other party would be a saint in the world. Mr. Jiraiya, thank you for your praise. I know what I'm doing, Yamashita said with a smile. The crowd rushed along the way and chatted all the way, and a few days passed in a blink of an eye. Under normal circumstances, the crowd should have gone all the way to Vegas in the land of hot springs safely, but they did not expect that they met a strange person on the way to Vegas. Hey, guys, do you want to join our evil god cult? That was a tall man with an evil smile on his face. He stared at the people on the road and licked his lips unconsciously. He was not a good guy at first glance, especially in his hand. He was holding a huge three-bladed sickle, which looked very scary. Yamashita was stunned when he saw the man in front of him. Isn't this guy Fiden? Speaking of which, this member of the Akatsuki organization did come from the Kingdom of Hot Springs. After Yamashita came to power in the Kingdom of Hot Springs, he also arranged ninjas to encircle and suppress the evil god cult in the Kingdom of Hot Springs, which was quite effective. At least during his construction phase, no one from this sect came to make trouble. However, during the encirclement and suppression of the evil god cult at that time, no figure of Fiden was found, which made Yamashita think that Fiden had already joined the Akatsuki organization, but he did not expect to meet this guy in this place. Speaking of Fiden, except for the fact that he is immortal, there is really nothing to recommend him. Other members of Akatsuki at least have their own special skills, but this guy is a complete waste. He is also a psychopath, a murderous pervert, a crazy believer. The more he can hurt himself, the happier he is. He is a complete masochist. For a guy like this, apart from staying in Orochimaru's laboratory and contributing to Orochimaru's biological science career, he really doesn't know what other role this guy has. It just so happens that Orochimaru is about to go to their company, so they can give this guy as a gift. Perverts have no human rights in their company, and being able to contribute to science is their greatest value. Chapter 34 The Legendary Golden Escape. I say, what are you thinking about? Do you want to join my evil god cult? Seeing that the four people didn't say anything, Fiden repeated it impatiently. What evil god cult? It doesn't sound like a good thing. You are such a weird guy, Naruto directly retorted, looking at Fiden with a bad face. Oh. In other words, you refused, Fiden said with a smile, and at the same time, his hand had already touched the bloody March sickle behind him, and it seemed that he was ready to rush up at any time. Naruto, step back, Jiraiya said. He had heard of this evil god cult before. It was a terrorist organization that believed in evil gods and often made some living sacrifices. It was notorious in the entire ninja world. However, later, this organization seemed to be surrounded and killed by the Yamashita Industrial Company, and there was no trace of it. Others thought that this religion had been destroyed, but they didn't expect that there were still survivors. Thinking about it, he looked at Yamashita Kenji, but found that he took out several scrolls from his package, and then said to Jiraiya, Mr. Jiraiya, since this guy's causing trouble in our country of soup, let me deal with it. Jiraiya came to deal with Hiden. Naturally there was no problem. With Hiden's means, it was impossible to take blood from Jiraiya's body, and his strongest spell means naturally could not be used. However, it was said before that he wanted to capture Hiden completely and use it as experimental material. If Jiraiya went on the field, it would inevitably beat Hiden to pieces. And Hiden's recovery ability does not seem to be very strong. If he only takes back a head and a few arms, it would be a pity. Therefore, it is better to take action himself and solve the opponent. Mr. Yamashita, can you do it? Jiraiya said hesitantly. He had never heard of this gentleman as a powerful ninja. Don't worry, I have traveled all these years, and it is not for nothing, Yamashita said confidently. You guys are really abominable. All of you, as the best of the evil god, go to hell. Fiden's eyebrows jumped wildly, feeling that he seemed to be underestimated by the other party. He took the bloody March sickle behind him and rushed out like a bullet. Come on. Yamashita threw the scroll directly, and a cloud of smoke burst out. Then, from the smoke, a strange monster rushed out. This monster was covered with a metallic luster, with 4 arms and 3 heads. The chest was open, revealing several gun barrels inside. The lower body was like a spider, with 8 sharp feet. The whole person was hideous and terrifying, making people afraid. Is this a puppet? Jiraiya saw that the monster just appeared, and he rushed up very flexibly to fight with Fiden. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Yamashita Kenji. Unexpectedly, Mr. Yamashita was actually a puppeteer. It seems that his relationship with the Wind Country is not as simple as it seems. Indeed, this is the puppet of Fantasy Beast Type 1 that I made. It's my trial work, and it hasn't really been put into battle yet. But it just so happens that with this person testing it, I can also find out the shortcomings of this puppet and correct them this morning. Yamashita's fingers kept flicking. If you look closely, you will find that there are very thin threads at the fingertips of his fingers, connecting the puppet in front of him. But, aren't the puppets made by puppeteers mostly made of the sacred wood of the Sand Village? That kind of wood is tough, and has good chakra conduction properties, making it an excellent material for making puppets. But why is your puppet, Mr. Yamashita, made of metal? Jiraiya asked in confusion. Although he didn't know much about puppetry, he had fought with puppet ninjas before, and knew that they used wood to make puppets not out of interest, but only that kind of wood could allow them to control the puppets more finely. This is also a flaw of puppetry. Although it is clever, and has many means, the material used to make the puppet is ordinary and quite fragile. Only by infusing chakra into it and protecting the material can it withstand the fierce battles of the ninjas. However, the puppet at the foot of the mountain is completely like an iron lump. It is made of fine iron and is very hard. Just look at the guy Fiden who keeps chopping the puppet with the sickle in his hand, but can't leave any traces. You can see how strong this thing is. If the puppet masters of the Sand Village all use such puppets, then Konoha will have a much harder time against them. That one. Yamashita controlled the puppet and didn't care about defense at all. Instead, he attacked Fiden with 4 hands and 8 legs together, suppressing him directly and making it difficult to continue. It was obvious that he couldn't hold on for long. Seeing the situation in the field improve, he couldn't help but relax and said to Jiraiya, I know the kind of wood you are talking about. It is the wood specially cultivated by the Sand Village for making puppets. But that kind of wood is too fragile. Not only does it need to be wrapped in chakra to protect it during the battle, but its chakra conduction properties are also average, not very good. And it just so happens that I know that there is such a material in this ninja world that is both extremely hard and has better chakra conduction performance than that kind of wood. Jiraiya frowned and pondered for a moment, then seemed to think of something. His eyebrows couldn't help but jump wildly, and said in disbelief, You are not talking about that, right? That's it. Yamashita said with a smile. Chakra conduction metal, recognized by the ninja world as the most suitable material for making ninja tools, is also the material that countless ninjas are flocking to. It is also the most expensive material in the ninja world. Jiraiya complained in his heart, and then looked at the iron lump that was fighting. In his eyes, it had become a golden lump with golden light. You know, this kind of chakra conducting metal is as valuable as gold. The value of 1 gram of gold is basically equal to the value of this gram of chakra conducting metal. Moreover, because of its huge role, it is very difficult to exchange it with an equal amount of gold. In the black market, the exchange rate is as high as 1 to 3, or even 1 to 5. This chakra conducting metal is so excellent. Didn't the puppeteers of the Sand Village discover it? Of course they discovered it. However, with their financial resources, it is impossible to create a puppet made entirely of this metal. Not to mention them, even the prince of their Konoha village, Asuma Sarutobi, the son of the 3rd Hokage, only used chakra conducting metal to create a very small ninja tool. Even this cost him most of his savings. Later, he had to eat dirt for a long time, and didn't even have the financial resources to eat a barbecue. Looking at the puppet in front of him, to be honest, even Jiraiya himself had the idea of taking advantage of the fire. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Arrival in Las Vegas. Fiden's situation was not good. Facing the iron lump on the opposite side that could not be pierced or broken, he could not exert his full strength at all, and could only compete with the opponent in physical skills. What made him embarrassed was that even in a physical skill competition, he was no match for this puppet. The opponent was covered with weapons, and his 4 hands and 8 feet attacked him together, making it very difficult for him to parry, not to mention the black muzzle on the opponent's chest, which always gave him a creepy feeling. This can't go on. Otherwise, he will definitely lose. Fiden gritted his teeth, and saw Yamashita Kenji, who was talking to Jiraiya on the side. His eyes flashed, and the bloody March sickle in his hand crossed a semicircle, swinging the puppet away, and the whole person shot out again, flying towards the direction of the mountain. Obviously, he also realized that, in order to fight with the puppeteer, he must first kill the puppeteer himself. However, the puppet under the mountain was not something that could be dodged at will. The puppet's forearms detached from the body and shot straight at Hiden's back like a bullet. A sharp cone appeared on the palm. If Yamashita didn't dodge, he would definitely be pierced through the body. However, Hiden obviously had something to rely on. His immortal body was enough for him to resist the opponent's attack. As long as he got close to the opponent and obtained the opponent's blood, this attack would be enough to make the opponent suffer the consequences. Puff, 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 puff. The sound of 4 blades entering the flesh came, and Hiden's body was penetrated by the blades as expected. 4 blood flowers bloomed in the air, looking dazzling and weird. However, this attack did not hinder Hiden's attack trend. At this moment, the distance between him and Yamashita became closer, which made Jiraiya on the side feel threatened, and unconsciously moved closer to Yamashita. However, at this moment, something strange happened. The 4 spikes that penetrated Fiden actually bent and directly grabbed Fiden's body. Then a huge force came and forcibly pulled Fiden back. It turned out that there were steel cables at the end of the forearms, which were connected to the main body of the puppet. Now, after the forearms grabbed Fiden, the main body of the puppet exerted force and directly pulled Fiden back. Damn it. Fiden's pupils were red, and he was obviously furious. This battle was too aggrieved. The opponent's means really suppressed him, leaving him no possibility of resistance. It was like a toy, being toyed with by the opponent. It was really unwilling. Fiden accumulated strength in the air, used all his strength, and directly threw the sickle in his hand towards Yamashita Kenji. This time it was a self-sacrificing attack. If he failed, he would die. Seeing the blade getting closer and closer to him, Yamashita Kenji did not panic, but moved his little finger slightly, and a figure flashed out from behind him, blocking in front of him, holding up a black iron umbrella, steadily blocking the sickle thrown by Fiden. Do you think that I have no other means than just stand here and let you attack? Yamashita said to Fiden with a smile, looking like he had a good idea. Jiraiya's eyebrows jumped faster. If he was not mistaken, this new puppet was also made of chakra conducting metal, right? How much money does this dogridge have to be able to make so many puppets with that material? The ninja in front of him was not defeated by the opponent's puppet technique, but by the opponent's golden escape. Seeing that the attack failed, Fiden was even more angry. He took out a spear from his sleeve and attacked the puppet frantically. The 3 heads of the puppet flew up directly, and one of them was in the air and stopped right above Hiden. A powerful sonic cannon was emitted from its neck, directly suppressing Hiden in place, making it difficult to move. Then, another head flew directly to Hiden's head, opened from the middle, and directly covered Hiden's head. Then, the puppet body came over, and the muscles on the chest were all retracted, revealing a cavity, which directly included Hiden's entire body. The 3 heads returned to their positions and locked, and Hiden was captured directly. Done. Yamashita was still very satisfied with his puppet's first battle. Although Hiden didn't know any ninjutsu, he was also a Jonin level in terms of physical skills. He was able to defeat the opponent in physical skills. Obviously, the puppet's combat power was not small. Then, he directly sealed the puppet that protected him into the seal scroll again, and then controlled the puppet that trapped Hiden to follow the crowd, and the crowd hurried on their way again. Mr. Yamashita, in fact, I can just fight like that just now. You let your puppet fight, and those scratches alone are a lot of losses. Jiraiya was still upset about the other party using chakra conduction metal to make puppets. It doesn't matter, it's just a small amount of money. If you can solve it with money, you don't have to take risks, Mr. Jiraiya. Yamashita said as a matter of course, which made Jiraiya's face twisted again. In fact, chakra conduction metal is not very precious to Yamashita. He has many mines in the land of hot springs, and those mines are the minerals that produce this metal. At the same time, their company's metallurgy institute is constantly trying to research new alloys, and it is quite effective. It will not be long before he can use materials with better performance than chakra conduction metal. Jiraiya didn't understand Yamashita's wealth, so he didn't say anything. After seeing the overwhelming battle just now, Naruto and Sasuke looked at Yamashita with different eyes. I didn't expect that this low-key person actually has such strength. He is really too low-key, and Sasuke has become more determined in his thoughts. If he joins this person's company, he will definitely grow faster than in Konoha. After a few days of traveling, they saw a prosperous city in the distance. The city is bustling with traffic and people, and the pedestrians are wearing jewels and gems. Obviously they are all wealthy people. A star logo is inlaid just above the gate of the city. Below the star, there are a few words written. Vegas. This is the one that has risen in recent years, and it has directly defeated a group of gambling places headed by Tansho Street with a sweeping momentum, and has become a holy place for all gamblers in the ninja world, known as Gambling City Vegas. Chapter 36 Naruto. Let's say goodbye here. You guys go find your reserve Hokage here, and I'll go back to the capital of the land of hot springs, after checking the accounts. After you find Tsunade, if you're not in a hurry, you can play in Vegas for a while. Although it's called a casino, there are a lot of things to do here, and I believe you won't be disappointed. Just remember, small gambling is fun, big gambling hurts your body. It's okay to play a few times occasionally, but if you really get addicted, it's boring. My city also has a rule that you can't gamble your life. Outside the casino, Yamashita patiently told Jiraiya and Naruto. This casino was built in the early stage of his business to quickly gather funds. There are some new gambling tools that he heard about and embezzled from his previous life, and their addictiveness can be seen. This thing is somewhat contrary to his moral bottom line, so after making enough money, he thought about transforming this city. However, this decision was opposed by all the company executives, including Kakuzu. They believed that it was completely unnecessary for Yamashita to treat gambling as a tiger, and even if the casino was closed, other casinos would appear, which could not fundamentally solve the problem. After thinking for a long time, Yamashita gave up this idea. Anyway, this is not his original country. He has sympathy for the people in this world, but he does not identify with them, so he will not insist too much on this. However, in order to prevent the tragedy of broken families and deaths in this casino, he still set a rule that anyone entering the casino needs to verify their capital and can only enter after the assets reach a certain level, and if they lose to a certain bottom line, they will be forced to send out. Once this regulation came out, although a large number of gamblers were kept out, it made the public security in the city much better, and almost no doors could be locked at night. In addition, most of those who could enter the city were either rich or noble, so the value of real estate in this city was also the top in the entire ninja world, enough to rank in the top 3. I know, Uncle Yamashita, you are so long-winded, Naruto said casually, obviously a little impatient with the other party's instructions. You kid, isn't it for your good that I think so much? You guy, you really don't know how hard I work. Yamashita rubbed Naruto's head fiercely and said, "Oh, stop rubbing it, it's all a mess." Naruto dodged Yamashita's ravage with great disgust, and then said, "Why are you so hardworking? As the manager of the city, you just need to manage the city well. On the contrary, we tourists have a lot to think about." Yamashita Kenji couldn't help but frown. He forcibly grabbed Naruto, rubbed his head hard, and said, "I have come to another world, and this set of formulas is still chasing me? Although your name is Naruto, you can't say such Naruto language. It's annoying, stop it. Okay, you two. Jiraiya separated the two reluctantly and then said solemnly to Yamashita, "Then, Mr. Yamashita, we'll leave. As for Sasuke, please take good care of him." Yamashita nodded and said, "No problem, this guy's much better than Naruto." Ignoring the face Naruto made at him, he continued, "By the way, please be safe in the casino. It was not easy to build this casino. Don't destroy it for me. Don't worry, Mr. Yamashita, we won't do anything rash." After everyone said goodbye, Yamashita left with Sasuke and the puppet that imprisoned hidden. After walking for a while, a team of people came and took them to the central building of Vegas, a high tower. Yamashita came to his office, holding the documents he had collected during this period of time, and said to Sasuke, "Take a look around this office. When I finish dealing with things here, I will take you back to the company headquarters. There, you can meet up with Shikamaru and the others, and learn about our company together." Sasuke looked at the office. The decoration was quite simple, not as glittering as he had imagined. He was silent for a moment, and finally asked Yamashita, "Mr. Yamashita, I still want to ask about my brother." Yamashita Kenji put down the file, looked at Sasuke, and said, "I thought you didn't ask me all this time, because you became more stable, but it turns out that you want to find a chance for us to be alone to ask me. Sorry, Mr. Yamashita, I really can't take my brother's affairs lightly." Sasuke said sincerely, "Is that so?" Yamashita was in deep thought, and at the same time, he was thinking about how to fool the matter. In fact, it's not a bad idea for him to tell the other party about his brother's plans now. After all, although Uchiha Itachi has a problem with his brain, he is still a powerful fighting force. In the future, the ninja world will be invaded by various aliens. If this guy exists, it will undoubtedly increase the strength of the ninja world. Therefore, from the beginning, he wanted to save this guy. However, if he survives, then Sasuke's growth will obviously be limited. Not to mention, if his brother doesn't die, this guy can open the main Gekio. Even if he opened the main Gekio by chance, without the infinite power of the Eternal Eye, it would be difficult for Sasuke to grow as strong as in the original work. He had to consider the butterfly effects that might be caused by this change in the plot. After a moment of silence, he finally decided to cheat Sasuke. "Your brother is a very powerful ninja." Yamashita's words were neither hurried nor slow, but they attracted Sasuke's attention. "I haven't met him very many times. I once tried to recruit him. After all, there are not many ninjas like him in the entire ninja world. It's just that that guy seems to have joined some other organization, so he didn't agree to my recruitment." "Other organization?" Sasuke said with some doubts. "What is that?" "Well, I didn't know much about it at first, but later, I happened to meet the leader of that organization." Yamashita paused, then continued, "It is an organization called Akatsuki. The purpose of this organization is to bring peace to the ninja world, but their methods are extremely extreme. That is to collect all the tailed beasts, and then use their chakra to summon the ultimate weapon, 10 tails. Use the power of the 10 tails to destroy a country, make the people of the entire ninja world feel pain and fear, and give up war in this fear, so as to achieve a peaceful result." Yamashita talked eloquently, and in the calmest tone, he spoke of the horrifying plan of a terrorist organization. Chapter 37 The So-Called Peace. As soon as Yamashita said this, Sasuke was stunned. After all, although this guy was carrying a blood feud, he was just a child who had not experienced the world. He was really shocked when he heard such news. There is such an organization? So did that man join that organization with such an intention? Sasuke asked, frowning, feeling that something was not right. Seeing that Sasuke had fallen into the trap, Yamashita smiled secretly and then said, "I don't know what your brother is thinking. But if you want to defeat your brother, you must face the Akatsuki organization. That organization dares to collect tailed beasts and go against the 5 major ninja villages. I think you can guess its strength. So, you may have to think about revenge in the long run." Sasuke clenched his fists. It was already very difficult to simply surpass his brother in strength. Now the other party is actually sheltering in an organization. If he wants to kill that man, he has to find a way to deal with that organization. The difficulty can be imagined. He looked at Kenji Yamashita and asked, "Mr. Yamashita, since you know there is such an organization, have you thought of a way to destroy that organization?" or tell the 5 major ninja villages about it? Yamashita said, I did try to destroy that organization. To be more precise, I have been in touch with the leader of their organization and have discussed matters of cooperation. Sasuke said in surprise, cooperation? Why would you cooperate with such an organization? Shouldn't we unite all the forces that can be united to destroy it together? Yamashita smiled and said, Sasuke, you need to be more flexible in your mind. Don't always think about fighting and killing. Think about problems from the perspective of solving problems. Sasuke was even more confused and didn't understand what Yamashita meant. Yamashita paused, then continued, what you think is that this organization threatens the stability of the ninja world, so it needs to be eradicated. What I think is that this organization wants to make the ninja world peaceful, and this goal is good. So if we try to come up with a better plan, can this organization be used for my benefit? Better plan? Sasuke said, I'm afraid it's a bit difficult. It's indeed very difficult. Yamashita replied, but at the same time, the benefits are huge. I said before that this organization is full of talents and powerful people. It is better to be able to bring these people under my command than to fight against them. That's why I cooperate with them. Is that so? Sasuke still didn't quite believe it. Then, Mr. Yamashita, what is your concept of peace? Yamashita spread his hands and said, no. What? Sasuke said in disbelief. I said, no. Yamashita said as a matter of course, such a grand proposition, how can I have an answer? Then what you said before. How do you think the people in this city live? Yamashita suddenly asked. Sasuke thought about what he had seen and heard along the way and said, very good. Even in Konoha village, I have never seen such happy people. Then what do you think? If nothing unexpected happens, do you think these people, including the rulers of this city, will want a war? Yamashita asked again. Sasuke answered thoughtfully, no, they live a happy life, and war will not bring them any benefits. So, they should be the group of people who least want war. Yamashita snapped his fingers and said, that's what I mean. I really don't know how to prevent wars from happening again in the ninja world, but what I know is that if everyone in the ninja world is satisfied with their current life, and the so-called war does not bring any benefit, but will damage their current life, then war should not happen so easily. This is what I want to do now. Thinking back to the previous ninja world wars, they were all games of interests between the major powers. If I can allow them to generate enough benefits in their own countries, and the benefits of cooperation between the major powers far outweigh the benefits of war, then even if the rulers of the major powers are warmongers, they will not choose war against the interests of everyone in the country. The scene described by Yamashita kept flashing in Sasuke's mind. He wanted to find loopholes in this theory, but in the end, he gave up. He had to admit that Yamashita's theory was self-consistent. If the future was really as the other party said, it might really bring real peace to the ninja world. I understand, Mr. Yamashita, you are indeed the one who has gone the furthest in this ninja world. If you really do what you said in the future, I think you should become a figure comparable to the ancestor of ninja, the Six Paths Sage. Yamashita smiled and said, keep a low profile. Keep a low profile. This matter has not been completed yet. Don't flatter me yet. Is Yamashita's theory correct? Maybe. But even in Yamashita's previous life, when technology and productivity were very developed, such peace had never been achieved. Human greed is endless. Maybe in this world, there is no such thing as enough benefits. Of course, this does not prevent him from practicing such a theory in the ninja world. At least in this world, human force is likely to overwhelm the entire ninja world. If his industry is really spread all over the ninja world, then he is afraid that he will have far more power than Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama, and by then, it will be enough to make those conspirators who are ready to make a move focus on economic construction. When they really realize the benefits of technological development and economic globalization, they will not have such an obsession with war. I understand, Mr. Yamashita. Sasuke said, what you have to do is to cooperate with the Akatsuki organization to understand your peace concept and then identify with you and eventually join you. It's more or less the same. Seeing that he had almost finished talking, Yamashita changed the subject and returned to the question of Uchiha Itachi. As for your brother's problem, I advise you to calm down a little. From my contact with those people, the reason why your brother slaughtered your clan does not seem to be simple. Behind him and the Akatsuki organization, there seems to be a third party manipulating everything that happened. I think that person may be the real mastermind behind the extermination of your Uchiha clan. Chapter 38 The Big Liar. What do you mean? Sasuke's face became serious. He couldn't take the matter of his family's extermination lightly. What I mean is that since there is such a mastermind, you don't need to be so anxious to retaliate against your brother. At least you should figure out the whole story before taking revenge. This way, you can also prevent the kind of thing that makes the relatives sad and the enemies happy. But, that man killed my parents. This is certain. Really? Is what you saw? Yamashita said. Don't things like illusions still exist in this world? Don't you know that there is such a thing as transformation techniques? Think about it. Is it possible that the scenes you saw at that time were all false and that someone wanted you to see them? But the village. Is the information in the village necessarily true? Can't the village be deceived? If Konoha village really has so much information, then why didn't they stop your brother from leaving the village at that time? Kenji Yamashita's words completely shattered the view that Uchiha Sasuke had held for many years. He kept recalling what happened that night in his mind. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. It seemed that it was not as simple as he thought. People are like this. Even if the matter is true, as long as you point out a little doubt, the person may continue to doubt himself in his mind and come to a conclusion that may be completely opposite to the facts. Of course, the premise of all this is that the person is unwilling to believe the truth. Sasuke, from the bottom of his heart, still doesn't want to believe that his brother is the kind of butcher who slaughtered his relatives, but he had to believe it when he saw it with his own eyes. Now, after hearing his own specious words, he naturally changed his mind. Then, Mr. Yamashita, what should I do now? For a moment, Sasuke was a little panicked and didn't know what to do. What should I do? It's very simple. Do what you originally wanted to do now. Yamashita said as a matter of course. In my company, study hard, improve your knowledge reserve, and continue to train yourself. When you really meet your brother in the future, just ask him in person. Sasuke nodded, and at the same time, he was more determined than ever before. Okay, that's about it. You go down first. I have asked someone to arrange a room for you. When I finish dealing with things here, I will take you back to the capital of the Kingdom of Soup in about 1 or 2 days. Yamashita said. Sasuke nodded and then left the room directly. Seeing the other party leave, Yamashita breathed a sigh of relief. He finally fooled this kid. It's good to understand the plot. As long as you selectively tell some truths, people can't refute it, and you can achieve your goal. Uchiha Itachi, I've been so worried about you. If you don't follow me in the future, it's really unreasonable. Yamashita stayed in Vegas for more than a day. On the 3rd day after arriving, he finally dealt with some things, and then rushed to the capital of the Kingdom of Soup capital, without stopping. In the past few days, Vegas has been as peaceful as ever, and there has been no riot. It seems that Jiraiya is still quite trustworthy, or it is quite smooth, and there has been no conflict. Next, they did not walk back to the City of Soup, but took a newly built railway line between the City of Soup and Vegas. Speaking of which, there are already things like trains in the ninja world now, but they are not widely used, and only run in some small countries. Yamashita deeply understands the role of this kind of public transportation, so while repairing the roads in the country of Soup, he also stepped up research on more practical train technology. And this railway connecting the City of Soup and Vegas is the result of the research. In fact, this thing is called a train, but it has nothing to do with the coal-fired trains in the previous life. Its power core is a chakra core, which uses the chakra pre-existing in it as a power source, and is converted into high energy power through the engine. If you have to say, this thing is somewhat similar to the high-speed rail in the previous life, but its speed is still much worse than that of the high-speed rail. However, compared to the trains that exist in the ninja world at this stage, it is much faster and much more stable. This railway has only been in operation for a short time, and is still in the trial operation stage. Therefore, all the people in this carriage are members of Yamashita's company, and there are not many people. Sasuke sat in the train carriage, looking at the scenery that was constantly receding on both sides, and couldn't help but sigh. Mr. Yamashita, I originally thought that your so-called vision was a bit unrealistic, but now it seems that I'm ignorant. Okay, why are you pretending to be profound as a child? If Naruto was sitting here now, I'm afraid he would have made a fuss, right? Yamashita said after taking a sip of the coffee brought to him by the conductor. Sasuke paused, then changed the subject and said, but, Mr. Yamashita, aren't you afraid that those with bad intentions will do something to the train track? It's wrong to stop eating because of choking. Before you eat, you don't always think about whether someone will poison it, right? Yamashita said. But, there are indeed such concerns, right? So, I want to promote this kind of thing that benefits the country and the people to the entire ninja world, so that people can truly experience the convenience of this thing, and let everyone protect it together. Sasuke nodded. Yamashita's logic was very smooth and self-consistent, and he couldn't find any reason to refute it. Although the two cities are far apart, with the train as a means of transportation, they came to the city of Soup from Vegas in just an hour and a half. After returning to his home nest, Yamashita was relieved. After arranging Sasuke to a staff member, he found Kakuzu who had been back for several days, and asked him to take care of Hiden who he brought back all the way. When Kakuzu saw Hiden's appearance, he didn't know why. A familiar feeling arose spontaneously. He always felt that this person seemed to have a certain connection with himself, but he couldn't remember where he had seen this guy. He was not the kind of person who would dwell on trivial matters, so he took the guy away and handed him over to Mr. Amado first. When Orochimaru came later, the two of them could study the guy's physique together. Finally, all the things at hand were arranged, and Yamashita breathed a sigh of relief. There were too many things at hand, which made him feel a little stressed. Then, what he had to do next was to ascend the throne and become a daimyo. Chapter 39, Coronation Celebration. With the lobbying of traveling around the countries in the previous few months, Yamashita's road to the throne was not much bumpy. After all, this is still a world where strength is respected. Although it is indeed a taboo in the ninja world to bring down a country's daimyo, as long as the benefits are sufficient, those in power will turn a blind eye. In terms of the form of ascending to the throne, he chose the classic abdication of his previous life. As we all know, in ancient my country, a set of reasonable and legal usurpation procedures had long been summarized, namely wearing swords and shoes to enter the palace, not bowing when entering the court, praising and worshipping without names, being crowned kings, and adding 9 gifts. As long as a powerful official does the above things, then the next step is basically to wait for the emperor to give up the throne honestly. Of course, what if the emperor does not know the importance of the matter and just refuses to give up the throne? Then just put on the yellow robe, let the subordinates and generals put on the yellow robe for him, and support him as the emperor. Aren't you forcing me? It's probably like this. Of course, for Yamashita, things don't have to be so complicated. After all, the country of Soup is now actually under his control. Even the daimyo has been killed by him. The person sitting on the throne is a puppet. He just needs to let the puppet abdicate and give the position of daimyo to himself. As for the daimyo's family, just put them in a corner and let them act as rich men. And the fact is, just as Yamashita Kenji expected, when the daimyo solemnly announced in front of the citizens of the city of Soup that he would pass the position of daimyo to Yamashita Kenji, the people in the capital all cheered. They are not fools, and naturally know who has brought about the changes in their lives over the years. It is absolutely a good thing for them that Lord Yamashita can take charge of everything in the country of Soup. In this way, Yamashita successfully ascended the throne and became the daimyo of the country of Soup, and held a grand ceremony in the capital of the country of Soup. During the ceremony, many new products of Yamashita Research Institute were also displayed, including new agricultural tools and agricultural tractors, household rice cookers, electric ovens, televisions, and telephones and telegraphs related to communications. These things have never appeared in the ninja world, or they have appeared in the ninja world before, but they are far less advanced than those displayed in the celebration. These devices made everyone who participated in the celebration feel the charm of technology, and gave them a beautiful fantasy about their future. At the same time, these technological products also made the businessmen who participated in the celebration smell strong business opportunities. Although they are still during the celebration, they are already planning how to take the lead in obtaining the agency rights in some areas and transport these things to other places to make profits. This Mr. Yamashita is really extraordinary, Shikamaru said with some emotion in a booth. A car was being exhibited in the booth, and the demonstrator had just demonstrated the function of this thing. Even if the gorgeous appearance of this thing is excluded, just talking about its function alone, it is something that ordinary people cannot refuse. Now he understood why the roads in the land of hot springs were built so well and so smooth. It turned out that the reason was here. Of course, didn't you notice? Choji on the side stuffed the freshly grilled skewers in his hand directly into his mouth and took all the meat into his mouth with one stroke. Then, while chewing, he said, "There are so many unheard of delicacies in the land of hot springs. This is simply heaven. I have decided to settle here in the future and never leave again." Obviously, the heir of the Akimichi family has been conquered by the Chinese food brought by Yamashita. "Oh, Choji, the oil on your skewers is about to splash on me," Ino said coquettishly, pushed Choji away, then opened a small mirror, took a lipstick, and applied it on her lips again and again, saying, "This thing called lipstick is the best. It is 10,000 times better than the previous cosmetics. I see some eyebrow pencils, foundation, eyeshadows and so on the exhibition stand over there. I want to buy them all. Sasuke, look at me. Do I look good like this?" Sasuke looked at Ino's bright red lips, as if he had just eaten several children. He swallowed unconsciously and said insincerely, "Yes, it looks good." Ino smiled foolishly with his mouth open, looking even more hideous and terrifying. Come, Karin, I'll help you draw." Karin timidly dodged and said, "No, thanks. Hey, why are you being so polite to me? Come, I'll help you draw." Shikamaru looked at the two guys helplessly, then turned to Sasuke and said, "I didn't expect that Sasuke would come here. I thought you would choose to practice in Konoha village." Sasuke looked around, taking in all the prosperity of the celebration, and said, "I think I will grow more here." "That's right," Shikamaru said, "although I haven't been here for a long time, I have already experienced the magic of Mr. Yamashita. I also think that, if the Kingdom of Hot Springs can continue to develop like this, it will definitely become the center of the ninja world. Although his military power may not be that high, he may crush other countries in terms of economy, humanities and other aspects. Studying here can indeed learn a lot that is different from what ninjas learn, so as to better develop and grow Konoha village." Since Shikamaru came to this hot spring city, his lazy attitude has disappeared, replaced by a thirst for knowledge. Perhaps, he has already seen that, if Konoha village does not intend to change, it will not be long before it will be left behind by this country, or more precisely, Konoha has been left behind by him. Sasuke nodded and was about to say something else, but he found two people walking towards him. The two people were covered in hoods, but from their bodies, an unbearable cold feeling emanated, which made Sasuke a little scared. It was as if he was stared at by a beast, making him feel cold all over. "Isn't this Uchiha Sasuke? Are you here too?" The two mysterious men stopped in front of Sasuke, with a cold and curious tone, and stretched their heads out of the hood. It turned out to be a man with vertical pupils, narrow face, and white complexion. Orochimaru. Chapter 40 Sugar-Coated Bullet. Sasuke was unable to move, as if he was directly captured by the opponent. Orochimaru looked at Sasuke carefully, stretched out his hand and gently stroked his face, saying, "What a handsome boy. You are worthy of being Itachi's brother. No matter from which aspect, you are a good host." When Sasuke heard the other party mention his brother, a surge of anger rose in his heart. He exerted force in his mouth and bit his tongue, forcibly waking up from the pressure. After a few ups and downs, he pulled away from the opponent, and then gasped for breath. Seeing that the other party had broken free from his control, Orochimaru was a little surprised and said, "Not bad. You can break free from my murderer Sora. You are worthy of being Itachi's brother. What is your relationship with Uchiha Itachi?" Sasuke wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and asked. "With Itachi, they should be considered enemies, right?" Orochimaru couldn't help laughing when he thought of the scene where he was defeated instantly by Uchiha Itachi and said to Sasuke, "So, the two of us should still be considered enemies, right? New Konoha rebel, Orochimaru?" At this time, the little ones on the side also reacted. Shikamaru looked at Orochimaru's appearance, swallowed his saliva, and said with some difficulty. Orochimaru glanced at everyone, stayed on Karin for a while, and then said, "Inoshikacho? Yamashita Kenji is really accurate in choosing people. That man's affairs have nothing to do with me." Sasuke silently took out a kunai, looked at Orochimaru cautiously, and said, "But if you want to fight, I'm always here to accompany you." "Sasuke, this person is Orochimaru, the rebel who killed the third generation Hokage. Your strength." Good. Orochimaru said 3 good words, and looked at Sasuke with a little more appreciation. He stretched out his palm, and was about to do something, but suddenly noticed something, put it down silently, and said, "Your speed is really as fast as ever." Sasuke didn't understand what the other party said, but he felt a gentle palm pressing on his head. He looked back, and found that Yamashita Kenji had stood behind him at some point. "Mr. Orochimaru, you really have a bad taste. You even have the leisure to play tricks on my employees. I wonder if your arms have been healed." Yamashita's words were heartbreaking, and Orochimaru's interest, which was quite good just now, disappeared in an instant. His hands were not healed, or in other words, if he hadn't been prepared in advance, he might have been left behind by Jiraiya and Tsunade. However, he still miscalculated. He didn't expect Tsunade's hemophobia to be cured so strangely, so he was besieged by the two, and suffered some injuries. Tsunade was unwilling to treat herself, so it was meaningless to look for other people in the ninja world. Moreover, he had a hunch that even Tsunade would not be able to heal his injuries. His hands might have been cut off from the soul level. If he wanted to fully recover his hands, he had to start with the technique of Shikifujin. Therefore, he packed up a little and came to the land of hot water, hoping to use the resources here to find a way to crack this technique. "Mr. Yamashita, are you chasing me away? How is that possible? I spent so much effort to invite you to join. How could I reject you? I'm just concerned." As he said that, he also looked at the other person next to Orochimaru and asked, "So, this should be Mr. Kabuto Yakushi?" The man took off his hood, and it was a man wearing glasses, and with a gentle appearance. "Mr. Yamashita, nice to meet you. Well, since you two are here, then follow me." Yamashita did not ask Orochimaru why he did not bring any experimental equipment. A man like him who has 3 burrows would naturally not reveal all his secrets. In fact, he was already surprised that he could bring Kabuto with him. You know, in the original work, Kabuto Yakushi is a research genius who is not inferior to Orochimaru. He said hello to a few little guys and took the 2 away. Everyone was relieved to see Orochimaru go away. This legendary ninja was too much pressure on them. Sasuke was also relieved, and then he noticed that his back was completely wet. The pressure that the ninja put on him was really too great. The gap between the two of them could not be measured by miles. And that man was actually his brother's enemy, and from the other party's tone, it seemed that he had suffered at the hands of his brother. The gap between him and that man was really getting bigger and bigger. Sasuke clenched his fists, and his fighting spirit was high. Now is not the time to rest at all. No matter whether his brother took the initiative or was forced, all the truth will be revealed after he defeats the other party. Yamashita took the 2 directly to the research institute. During the celebration, Yamashita gave all the staff a holiday, except for those who were necessary to explain the products. Everyone else should have joined the celebration at this time. Of course, there are exceptions. "This is the laboratory I prepared for you, Mr. Orochimaru." Yamashita took Orochimaru to a spacious laboratory. The laboratory covers an area of hundreds of square meters and is filled with various top-level experimental instruments in the ninja world. Even with the financial resources of ordinary ninja families, it may not be possible to afford such a laboratory. Because I don't know what kind of equipment Mr. Orochimaru needs, I bought a set of all the most mainstream equipment. If Mr. Orochimaru needs anything else, you can tell me, and I can help you buy it, Yamashita said while introducing the laboratory. Mr. Yamashita is too polite. If I'm not satisfied with such a luxurious laboratory, it would be a bit ungrateful. Mr. Yamashita must have spent a lot of money to prepare such a laboratory, right? Even though Orochimaru was well informed, he was stunned for a moment when he saw the advanced equipment in this laboratory. There weren't many such devices even in his main base, not to mention the number of top-level devices in this laboratory. Kabuto Yakushi, who was standing by, was trembling. He looked at a device and reached out to touch it, but he didn't dare to do so, as if he was afraid of damaging it. He followed Orochimaru and hid from place to place all day long. When had he ever fought such a rich battle? For a moment, he wanted to change his allegiance and join the Yamashita Industrial Company. Chapter 41 Vegetative State. It's actually the most advanced biological microscope. If I remember correctly, in the entire ninja world, there is only one company that sells this advanced instrument. Not only is it expensive, but it is also limited. Only senior cooperative customers of the company can purchase the instrument from that company. Kabuto Yakushi looked at a high-tech instrument on the test bench and couldn't help but be amazed. This thing is like a holy object for any scientist or researcher. With the help of this thing, the research process can be greatly accelerated. Kabuto Yakushi also wanted to buy it before, but because the organization's funds were not sufficient, they were not eligible to buy it, so this matter was naturally put aside. But he didn't expect that he could see this dream instrument in this place. It's okay, Yamashita said calmly. The company you are talking about should be Olympus Corporation, right? That is a wholly owned subsidiary of our Yamashita Industrial Company. If we get the instrument from there, it is basically the cost price, not very expensive. Kabuto Yakushi was stagnant, his heart became a little twisted, and for the first time he felt envy and jealousy for capital and money. Okay, Kabuto, there will be plenty of time to check the instruments later. Don't be so anxious. Orochimaru was a big man who had seen a lot of storms, so he adjusted his mentality first and said calmly. Yamashita nodded and said, indeed, this will be your laboratory in the future, and there is plenty of time to get familiar with it. But before that, I need to reiterate the rules of our company again. If you want to do research in this laboratory safely, you'd better remember these rules of the company. As he said, he told Orochimaru and the others about some of the rules and regulations of the company's laboratory. The system is not very restrictive. As long as you don't do anything that is harmful to the world or too immoral, there are no other restrictions on the experimental topics. Even if you want to do human experiments, you can submit them to the research institute after ensuring the safety of the experiment. The institute will issue tasks and recruit people willing to serve as experimental materials. As for the various results and benefits generated by the experiment, according to regulations, the researchers will share the research results with the company in a 20-80 ratio. To be honest, this treatment is already generous enough. If it were in the past, those big companies would definitely embezzle all the research results. If they didn't squeeze the researchers to death, they would be considered unprofessional. Unlike Yamashita, who not only gave the researchers adequate treatment so that they had no worries, but also shared the profits with them. Now, several research teams have achieved financial freedom because of their research results. These conditions are naturally nothing big for Orochimaru. He doesn't really care about money. If there is a place where he can conduct research safely, that's what he wants. No problem. Orochimaru agreed. That's great, Yamashita said, taking out a contract from his arms. You can take a look at this. If there are no problems, just sign your name below. Orochimaru picked up the contract and looked at Yamashita Kenji with some surprise. This kind of thing is not even a piece of straw paper to them, and it has no binding force. But for some reason, the other party actually wanted him to sign this kind of thing. Is there something strange? He read the contract over and over again, but didn't find any traps, so he signed his name directly below. Okay, now congratulations to Mr. Orochimaru for officially joining our company. I believe you will not regret your choice at this moment. Yamashita put the contract away and said. He naturally knew that this thing had almost no binding ability, but in order to increase the sense of ceremony and to make these unruly guys have a little concern, he still insisted on such a tradition. Even if the other party violated the contract one day, it would be a legitimate reason for him to deal with the other party. Then, Mr. Orochimaru, please follow me. I have prepared a gift for you to join the company, Yamashita said, and took him to Sanzu Amado's laboratory. The other party was obviously a determined person. Even during the celebration, he stayed in his laboratory to do research. On his experimental table, Feeden lay naked on it, with his eyes closed, as if he had fallen asleep. He was bound all over his body, and couldn't move at all. Mr. Amado, sorry to bother you. Yamashita walked over and said, this is Mr. Orochimaru who I told you about before. He will study this person with you. Amado put down the work in his hands, and said to Orochimaru, so it's really Mr. Orochimaru. Your name is well known. You're welcome. Orochimaru said casually, and then turned his attention to Hidden. So, is this the so-called gift? This guy is? Yamashita gestured to Amado, and the other party explained excitedly, this is the most peculiar creature I have ever seen in my life. Please allow me to call it a creature, but some of his characteristics are really incompatible with humans. After some rough experiments of mine, it has been basically confirmed that this guy definitely possesses the legendary immortal body. Even if his head is chopped off and his heart is dug out, he will not die. And if the chopped off head or the dug out heart is restored, it will automatically grow back. It's like a plant whose branches can be cut off at will without dying. The weak points of us humans are nothing to him. Really, it's amazing. This guy can no longer be called an ordinary human being, so I call him a vegetative person. The corners of Yamashita's mouth twitched. He didn't expect that the other party would give Feiduan such a scientific name. After listening to the other party's description, Orochimaru walked in front of Feiduan with a look of surprise, while picking up the data on the side and comparing it with Feiduan who was unconscious on the bed. After a moment, his pupils burst into heat. But, it's really great. This guy's exactly the experimental material I need. Orochimaru said 3 good words in a row, expressing his excitement. Although he has basically achieved immortality because of the reincarnation of the corpse, this immortality still has many defects. And now the person in front of him seems to be able to make up for the defects of his immortality. In this way, how could he not be excited? Now, he couldn't wait to take action and figure out why the man in front of him had such ability. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, 3 words to control water. It's best if you like it. Yamashita naturally knew Orochimaru's obsession with immortality. When he saw a person like Hidden, he would never let him go. Then, Mr. Orochimaru, you and Mr. Amado will study this person together in the future. I hope you can all succeed. After saying that, Yamashita did not step away directly and found someone to arrange some trivial matters for Orochimaru and the other person, and then returned to the celebration. This celebration is not only to celebrate his coronation, but also to promote all the technological products of their company, or in other words, the latter is the main purpose. Therefore, he will need to meet with merchants from various countries later to discuss the issue of the agency rights of those technological products. This grand ceremony in the Kingdom of Soup can be said to be a complete success. The people have seen the bright future that their country can foresee, and those merchants have also obtained the agency rights they expected. Yamashita has obtained sales and business orders, which can be said to be a win-win situation for all 3 parties. Of course, the one who won the most is naturally Kakuzu. After collecting all the deposits from merchants, this guy locked himself in the vault, counting the money over and over again, and buried himself in the pile of money. If Yamashita didn't know this guy's character, he would have died in this vault. Yamashita no longer needed to worry about this matter. He specially set up a project team and recruited relevant talents from all over the country to manage this matter. Shikamaru and the others naturally followed this project team to learn. If these future leaders of Konoha can understand the company's operating mechanism, it will be very helpful for future cooperation between the 2 parties. After solving this part of the matter, Yamashita sent people to invite the Kazekage of Sand Village and the leader of the Rain Country, Pain, to his soup capital to officially launch the South to North Water Diversion Plan. In fact, the best time to hold this ceremony should be at his coronation ceremony, when the three forces formally sign and announce the plan. In this way, on the one hand, it can further prove the legitimacy of his accession to the throne, and at the same time, it can also let the personnel of the other two parties see the science and technology event, which will make them more confident in this plan, and make the promotion of these technologies in their countries smoother. But thinking that such a grand event is mixed after all, although these two are the top figures in the ninja world, if something goes wrong, it will be a bit of a loss. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, he still chose to hold this ceremony after the grand ceremony, and strictly control the people entering and leaving the hot spring city, and make sure that there will be no mistakes. After the invitation was sent out, both parties arrived a few days later. In the original plot, during this period of time, Kazekage Rasa had died, but now, because of his own reasons, he survived and is still actively promoting this plan. The senior personnel of the three parties met formally for the first time, and there was no tit for tat as imagined. Most of the things have been discussed. This time they came just to hold a formal ceremony. Without the conflict of interests, everyone will naturally not be on the verge of a fight. Although Nagato has not given up his original plan, even if his plan succeeds, the development of the Rain Country is still a big problem. Therefore, this plan is also what he urgently needs. Even if he has to pretend to be cooperative, he needs to push this plan forward. So, under the matchmaking of the three parties, the signing ceremony was officially completed under the witness of everyone. This also means that the South to North Water Diversion Project has officially started. Yamashita saw that the completion rate of the project in the system has increased a little, and he was happy. At this rate, I'm afraid that it will not be long before I will get another award. After the signing ceremony, Fengying went back to the village to prepare, while Yamashita and Pin will take the engineering team that has been prepared before to the Rain Country to carry out the construction of the initial stage of the project. In the territory of the Fire Country, a large convoy was moving on the road, with ninja guards on both sides. Even the most rampant mountain bandits would not dare to target a convoy of this size. In the center of the convoy, there was a significantly larger convoy, in which sat Yamashita and Pin. Yamashita was a little nervous about sharing a carriage with one of the bosses of the ninja world, but he was a skilled and courageous man after all. With his current skills, it was impossible for the other party to kill him instantly, so he just took it easy. I wonder, Mr. Yamashita, do you have any plans for the project in the Rain Country? Although Yamashita had roughly mentioned the plans for different sections of the project when signing the contract, it was too brief at the time, and he was not a talent in this area, so he only understood half of it. This time, inviting the other party to share a carriage was also for the purpose of asking questions. Yamashita said, when our company was providing disaster relief in your country before, we had already consciously investigated your country's hydrological information and handed that information to the research institute to discuss the plan. Pain nodded. He also knew about this matter. After all, it was a foreign ninja who came to his country to search for information. He still had to grasp this kind of thing. After discussion, we decided to implement this project from 3 aspects: storage, diversion, and discharge. 3 aspects? Pain smacked his lips, feeling that there were indeed many wonderful things in it. The so-called storage means water storage. The current Rain Country only has one big river and one big lake to store water, which is obviously not enough. If a big lake or a big river stores too much water, there may be a flood. Therefore, we are planning to dig 2 more artificial lakes in the Rain Country, located in 2 directions, forming a 3-star guarding posture, to store all the abundant rainwater in the Rain Country, and reduce the pressure on the Holy River and the Holy Lake. Yamashita Kenji took out a map of the Rain Country, pointed at 2 locations on it twice, and said, at these 2 locations. Pain looked at the other party's plan and nodded. Their Rain Country has suffered from floods for many years, and they also have some experience in this regard. In fact, in the Hanzo era, those knowledgeable people had already planned to build artificial lakes to store water, and this plan had basically entered the demonstration stage. However, the rain country was in chaos for many years, and the people were displaced, so the project came to an end. When Pain came to rule the rain country, he brought up the plan again. However, after some discussion, it was found that the rain country did not have the ability to build such a large lake, so Pain gave up. You know, building such an artificial lake is not just about digging a big hole. The technical difficulties involved are not something that the rain country can solve. It would be just right for Yamashita company to do this project. Chapter 43. It's hard to leave homeland. As for the diversion aspect, it means water diversion. Yamashita paused, then continued. Although the simple construction of artificial lakes can play the role of water storage, it is actually very rigid and cannot be uniformly allocated. Therefore, we will build several canals between the 3 lakes and the river. They can be used to transport goods on weekdays. During the flood season, the water that has been stored can be controlled by the dam to regulate the water that has been stored to those lakes or rivers that are not full. And our South to North water diversion project needs to use such canals to transport water to designated locations. Indeed, if we do this, not only can the regulation of water volume be more flexible, but it can also benefit the people on both sides of the strait. It can be said that there are hundreds of benefits without any harm. Pain nodded in agreement. This is another project that the rain country is unlikely to complete. The dams that regulate the flow of water and the canals that run smoothly, these things naturally contain a very high level of technology. As for the last word, discharge, Yamashita was silent for a moment, then said, this is the last resort. When the flood is really out of control, in order to prevent the lakes from bursting and the rivers from bursting, the rainwater is artificially poured into a controllable direction. As he spoke, Yamashita pointed to a direction on the map and said, in this plan, we need to give up part of the land of the rain country and take some flood discharge measures here. Right here. After our company has counted the precipitation data of the rain country for so many years, even in the year with the largest precipitation, leaving such a place is enough to stabilize the abundant precipitation. Then, after a period of time, part of the water will enter the dense forests of the fire country, part of it will enter the main rivers of the river country, and part of it will remain in your country and slowly evaporate over time. After speaking, he looked at Pain, waiting for his words. Although Yamashita said it simply, the difficulty was naturally difficult to express in words. The difficulty of the project itself is a problem. At the same time, how to resettle the residents in the flood discharge area is another problem that needs to be solved. It is not that the flood discharge area cannot be inhabited, but when necessary, they need to leave their homeland for the rain country, and even if the rain evaporates in the future, those lands will basically be uncultivable due to the salinization of the land. This plan is a bit like losing a penny to benefit the world. However, the loss is far more than a penny, but the joys and sorrows of each family. However, what Yamashita did not expect was that Pain did not react too much, but said calmly, there is no problem with this. After returning to the rain country, I will arrange this matter and let those people move away from that land as soon as possible. Yamashita was stunned, thinking that the other party did not understand the difficulties involved, so he explained, this matter is not as simple as it seems. Let those who were born and raised here leave their hometown. If you don't want to cause any tragedy, you'd better deal with this matter seriously. You must know that it is difficult to leave your hometown, and those people have feelings for those lands. Mr. Yamashita. Pain looked at Kenji Yamashita seriously and said, I think you are wrong. The kind of feelings you are talking about may exist in the fire country, the soup country, and the earth country, but it is impossible to exist in the rain country. Pain's eyes were distant, as if he was lost in memories, thinking of his childhood, the Akatsuki organization, that the 3 of them established from scratch, and the various creatures in the rain country. Then, he opened his mouth and said lightly, the people of the rain country have no feelings for the land. They were just born on this land. Just a short sentence, but it made Yamashita's hair stand on end. What kind of experience could make this person, or the people of this country, have such an understanding? In the country of Yamashita's previous life, there are countless poems describing hometowns, and countless articles describing homesickness. The words "it's hard to leave your hometown" are basically something ingrained in the genes of everyone in that country. If a wanderer returns to his hometown, if he doesn't shed tears, it can be said that he is determined in his heart. But I didn't expect that this is not the case in this country. No wonder the rain country is called the crying country, which describes not only the abnormal weather, but also the crying people. At this moment, Yamashita felt that the responsibility on his shoulders seemed to be heavier. "I understand," Yamashita said. "Then let Mr. Pain do this. Don't be in a hurry. It takes time to dig the artificial lake, the canal, and the dam. After all these things are done, we will start to build the flood discharge area." In fact, at this time, he could have been very passionate and expressed his vision, describing to the other party the heights that he hoped the rain country could reach in the future. However, those things were no longer meaningful to Yamashita. It was better to do than to say. Anyway, his favorability with Pain was basically full, and there was no need to mobilize him to do anything. Those passionate speeches were temporarily saved, and he would say them later when he held a mobilization meeting for the construction workers. Pain nodded and said, "We still have to thank Mr. Yamashita. He helped our country with water control when it was only necessary to divert water." Yamashita waved his hand and said indifferently, "This is what we should do. If we don't sort out the water veins and control the floods in advance, the floods may destroy our water supply areas at any time. The cost at that time will be more than a little bit. Moreover, with this experience in water control, we can help more countries to build water conservancy facilities in the future. This is a mutually beneficial thing. It is the cooperation effect that our company has always pursued. Then I hope that our project can be completed smoothly." This group of people moved forward in the territory of the Land of Fire. It was unexpectedly smooth. There were no conspirators to make trouble, which surprised Yamashita. According to the information sent before, the position of Hokage of Konoha village was inherited by Tsunade, and gradually it has recovered some of its vitality. At the same time, Tsunade also sent envoys to their soup country, hoping to continue to discuss the project of Konoha village construction, but was temporarily suppressed by Yamashita. After all his energy is now focused on the South to North water diversion project. This is related to his mission, and he has to be cautious. Chapter 44 History. As for the Root organization, it has suffered a lot during this period. Now, because of the high bounty, a group of individual ninjas and ninjas from various countries have set their sights on this organization, and are doing everything they can to find and kill members of this organization. If they are encountered during a mission, they will definitely be killed first. After all, any head can be exchanged for considerable money. This kind of thing is worth doing. It is estimated that, since Yamashita issued the bounty, the Root organization has lost at least half of its ninjas, which is really a heavy loss. Of course, there are also those who want to kill some people casually to take credit, but they are basically discovered and counter-bounted. After all, the Root organization ninja itself is still very distinctive. The seal of the tongue root is not something that ordinary people can fake. Danzo would not deliberately create such a characteristic ninja for these bounties. After all, even if they want to impersonate, the strength of those people cannot be faked. For Danzo, it is not worth it at all. In this way, not many people dare to play such a trick. And Danzo, this guy, is even more miserable. Because his bounty is the highest, he is also the target of everyone's focus. Not to mention those individual ninjas. There are even ninja villages that issue secret missions and secretly send ninjas to Konoha village to carry out assassination missions. This is because Konoha village is now in ruins, and according to rumors, the current Hokage of Konoha and Danzo are suspected of being at odds, so those people dare to do such things. This also led to Danzo being assassinated more than twice even in Konoha village, and suffered serious injuries. Now he can only shrink in the Root base, and dare not go out. Seeing such information, Yamashita couldn't help laughing. This guy who only knew how to plot against others in the shadows finally experienced the taste of being plotted against. This is good, otherwise their journey through the Land of Fire would definitely not be so smooth. The guy who is obsessed with making trouble will definitely come up with something weird. A few days later, they felt a humid air around them, and the drizzle from the sky, and they knew that they had arrived in the territory of the rain country. Speaking of which, although the rain country has been experiencing heavy rains for years, it is not completely without sunny days. It's just that the weather has always been bad during the few times they came down the mountain. It has always been raining. This is considered to be Pain's territory. The other party settled all the workers down, and then gathered some leaders from the mountain and the construction team, to hold a meeting, to discuss the specific matters of the project. This meeting lasted for half a month. Everyone discussed the details of the construction in detail, almost taking all aspects into consideration. This is also their old tradition of Yamashita Industrial Company. Before the formal construction, the leaders will hold multiple meetings to discuss the construction details to avoid some accidents that may occur after the formal construction as much as possible. This is some of the construction habits that Yamashita brought over from his previous life. Although the construction workers here are at least at the level of genin, they will not have the kind of accident where they will break their bones after jumping off a 2-meter platform, but just in case, it is better to be careful. What if some ninjutsu accidentally hurts you? Moreover, judging from the results, this strategy is still very effective. The multiple construction teams under his command are all known for zero accidents, which is very rare even in the previous life, when the system is more perfect. After these large and small meetings, even Pain, the leader of the rain country, is a little overwhelmed. He and Zion attended the meetings alternately to understand the key points. Finally, after half a month of discussion, they roughly discussed a charter. They are preparing for dual line construction, with one construction team building the canal and the other digging the artificial lake. The two construction teams cooperated with each other, agreed on the construction period, and strived to complete the project at the same time, and then officially irrigated the water in the holy lake into the artificial lake through the canal, to reduce the water level pressure of the holy lake. Afterwards, the two construction teams merged to complete the construction of flood discharge facilities in the flood discharge area. Now that the plan has been drawn up, the next step is to carry out the construction according to the plan. Before that, all the construction team members were gathered at the foot of the mountain and a general construction meeting was held for them, which was also a mobilization meeting. After all, so many people left their homes and worked in such a harsh environment, and it was inevitable that they would have some resentment in their hearts. At this time, they had to be given a little gas so that they would not be passive and lazy. On the stage, in front of a group of construction team members, as well as Pain and Conan, he made an impassioned speech. Comrades, today, we gather here, not for anything else, but to complete one of the greatest projects in the history of the ninja world. Maybe you will be dissatisfied with the surrounding environment, have a headache about the difficulty of construction, and feel resentful about leaving your hometown. But what I want to say is that your efforts at this moment are worth it. The project you are building now will benefit the people of the rain country, the wind country, and even more countries in the future. This is a great achievement in the human history of our ninja world, and you are the direct participants in this achievement. Perhaps your names will not be remembered, but what I can guarantee is that your achievements will last forever. The people of the rain country and the wind country, and even the people of the entire ninja world, will remember that there is such a group of people who have dedicated their youth for the happiness of others. As long as the projects and buildings are still standing on this continent, you will be immortal. After the impassioned speech, the enthusiasm of the construction workers was aroused, and the little thoughts in their hearts basically disappeared. They had never thought that small people like them could also join such a great thing. This is different from war. War brings pain to people, but this thing can bring happiness to people. Mr. Yamashita, can small people like us do such a thing? Someone couldn't help asking. Yamashita smiled and said, so what if we are small people? In this ninja world, what can be done without small people? Or, let me put it more clearly, you are the ones who can really change history. You are the mainstream in this world. All the history of this ninja world is created by you. And now, I need you to use all your strength to create a glorious history that is different from the previous fighting and killing, but is equally exciting, and will be remembered by mankind. Chapter 45, Sneaky Character. The construction of the rain country is in full swing. With Yamashita's previous encouragement, the engineering teams under him are now very motivated. Even in rainy weather, they are working hard at the construction site. Of course, Yamashita's salary is also very sufficient. He knows that spiritual encouragement and material support are equally important. The previous mobilization meeting encouraged the workers spiritually, and at the same time, they should also be encouraged in terms of material. He is not like the core capitalists in his previous life, who want the horse to run, but don't want the horse to eat grass. He asked himself, as a boss, he has been very kind to his employees. It is for this reason that the workers support him so much. He watched the workers on the construction site release ninjutsu one by one according to the previous plan, or dig out soil and rocks, move them away, or transport some accumulated water, or reinforce the wall, and the efficiency is very fast. This is the good thing about the ninja world. Although there are no large-scale engineering machinery, there are black box technologies such as ninjutsu. To some extent, this thing is much more useful and flexible than excavators. It is precisely because of this help that he has the confidence to build a world-class project like this. Of course, simply moving mountains and filling the sea is not enough to complete such a project. The new materials studied by their company are also very important. It's just a pity that there are earth escape, magnetic escape, ice escape and so on in this world, but there is no cement escape. If there really is such a blood limit, then he has the confidence to advance the progress of the project by another big step. How is the progress of the project, Hiroshi? Yamashita walked up to a foreman and asked. A square-faced man stood up and said respectfully to Yamashita, Mr. Yamashita, everything is going according to plan. Don't worry, our Nohara team will never slow down the progress of the project. Don't be so serious, safety should still be the priority. Yamashita nodded with satisfaction and said. At this moment, a ninja came to his side and said, Mr. Yamashita, there was an accident on the hillside to the north. Yamashita's expression suddenly became serious. He followed the other party and asked, what's wrong? What happened? The ninja replied, the construction team of the Miyamoto local construction team found several suspicious people during the construction. When they went up to check, they couldn't tell their identities. They were hesitant and wanted to take them down. Unexpectedly, those people suddenly attacked and knocked down several people. They were killed by everyone together. How could this happen? Yamashita frowned deeply, but he didn't expect such a thing to happen. It was obvious that some organization sent people to stop the progress of this project. Its malicious intentions can be seen. But who is the person behind this? Yamashita thought, and his mind couldn't help but think of the scapegoat appointed by the Naruto world, Shimura Danzo. Could it be that the old guy is making trouble again? If so, then this person really has a way to die. You know, this project is now the lifeline of the Rain Country. If P knew that Danzo wanted to sabotage it, he might have directly rushed to Konoha village and killed him. As they were talking, the two came to the scene. There were several bodies lying in the middle of the field, some of which were those of the invading ninjas and some of the workers on the construction site. Yamashita was not in a hurry to check the identities of those ninjas directly, but came to the bodies of those workers, his face solemn, with a trace of lamentation. He touched the bodies of those people, sighed, and said, I'm sorry for you. I didn't bring you back safely. This is my responsibility. Then he looked at Miyamoto, the head of the construction team, and said, Musashi, please take care of the bodies of these people. Later, arrange for people to transport all the bodies back and bury them properly. At the same time, take good care of their families and give them enough compensation. If they have children, our company will cover all the expenses of the children until they reach adulthood. They all died for our company, and our company will definitely be responsible to the end. Yamashita's voice was sonorous and powerful, which made those who were a little sad for the death of the rabbit firm up, and transferred all the sadness in their hearts to hatred for the murderer. Yamashita did this not for show. He was really moved, and felt a little guilty about these people. After all, if it is really said, it was because his construction site protection force was not sufficient that caused such a thing to happen. After doing all this, he walked in front of the ninjas. The ninjas checked the other party's body, especially the root of the other party's tongue. They found that there was no Tongue trouble root seal. At the root of the other party's tongue, and there was nothing on the body that could prove his identity. Of course, this is also natural. After all, the other party sent people to do some tricks. If there is something on the body that can prove his identity, wouldn't it be directly exposed? After all, generally speaking, the ninja world is still peaceful now, and some superficial skills still need to be pretended. However, in this way, it is difficult to tell who wants to target the Rain Country project. Could it be Danzo? Although the probability is very high, think about it now. The other party is probably suffering from being wanted. It is a bit unrealistic to say that he has a mind to do such a thing that harms others and does not benefit himself. Is this person really going to do something bad and not care about it? Yamashita was at a loss for a moment. At this time, pain also came over. After seeing the situation in the field, his face was not very good. He stood in front of the ninja, picked up a ninja with one hand, and said, "Mr. Yamashita doesn't need to worry about this matter. It was also our negligence that allowed such a person to enter the construction site. Don't worry, within 3 days, our Rain Country will definitely give you an explanation, and we will also be responsible for the compensation of the dead workers." With that, Pain took the body and flew away from the scene. Looking at the figure of the other party gradually going away, Yamashita was also slightly relieved. With the power of the Samsara, he should be able to find the real culprit behind this matter, right? This is also good, so that he doesn't have to find the real culprit himself. By the way, Musashi, take a few people to scout the location where those people just took you and see if they are doing anything wrong. Yamashita arranged. Yes. The foreman took the order and took people to check. I hope the project can go on smoothly. Yamashita sighed, and then he patrolled the construction site again. Chapter 46 Water Supply. After this episode, the atmosphere of the entire construction site became more serious. Ninjas often patrolled the construction site to check suspicious people in the construction site to prevent similar situations from happening again. Although the workers were often annoyed by the interrogation, they could understand that it was to protect their safety. The overall progress of the project was not delayed because of this incident. It was progressing steadily every day. However, after a few days, the project had already taken shape and the lake could be vaguely seen. It should be a lake that stretches for tens of thousands of miles, with no end in sight, and it bears the responsibility of protecting the people of the Rain Country. Things on Yamashita's side were not affected, but there was an accident on Pain's side. The other party had said that he would find out who was behind the previous incident within 3 days, but more than 10 days had passed, and it was almost a month in a blink of an eye, but Pain had not received any useful information. Yamashita had no intention of pursuing this matter. Anyway, everyone was a victim, and there was no reason to blame his own people. However, Pain did seem to have suffered a blow. He had been hiding from Kenji Yamashita in recent days, and all matters were handled by Xiaonan. "Mr. Yamashita, I'm really sorry." Xiaonan bent a standard 90-degree angle, bowed deeply to Yamashita, and said, "It's been so long, and we haven't found those people behind the scenes. It's really our fault." Yamashita waved his hand and said, I understand. There are many talented people in this ninja world. It's not easy to find out the identity of a group of people. As long as there are no more accidents in the future, it will be fine. Don't worry about that. Our ninjas have completed the deployment around the construction site and patrol 24 hours a day to ensure the safety of your workers. Xiaonan assured. I hope so, Yamashita said, and at the same time, checked the progress of the project in his system. Ongoing mission, Wind Country South 2 North Water Diversion Project. Completion 29%. As the progress of the project progressed, his task progress was constantly updated. When the task progress reached 20%, he obtained the advanced skill of puppetry, special puppetry full skill. After acquiring this skill, his puppetry technique has basically reached the level of the one that dominates the ninja world, and has basically reached the level of Shaman, the creator of the puppetry technique. At the same time, some secret techniques and forbidden techniques related to puppetry are open to him, such as human puppet, 100 machines manipulation, etc., which he has already learned. He no longer needs to use chakra lines to control the puppets, but only needs to drive them with his mind. He also has enough ability to make and control large puppets. However, these improvements did not make him very happy, because the progress of this task has been stuck at 29% for a long time. Although the progress in the construction site has been advancing visibly, the system has not responded at all and has been stuck at this progress without moving. This is a bit unbelievable, and it is completely different from the previous growth rate, which makes him puzzled. Excluding the situation where the system has a bug, the system may have other criteria for such judgment. Is there any hidden danger in this project that he is not aware of? He thought of the ninjas who had sneaked in and couldn't help but worry a lot. Give orders to pay attention to any abnormalities during the recent construction, Yamashita said to the person next to him. Although they have been strictly guarded, there is no such thing as a thief who can't be guarded against for 1,000 days. If the other party really wants to use some means, it will be difficult for them to completely prevent it. Now, they can only be cautious and hope that those people have not reached the point of being crazy. After all, their project has not harmed the interests of any other forces. The other party's disruption is completely harmful to others and not beneficial to themselves. In this way, Yamashita carried a trace of worry in his heart, and several months passed. After several months of hard work, the double line project has been basically completed. The canal and the artificial lake have been fully connected, and the dam has been basically usable after testing. It must be said that for such a large super project, it is a miracle to complete the project to such an extent in just a few months. The ninja's labor force is really too high. One person is equivalent to an excavator, a pump, and a drilling machine, and can operate in any complex terrain, which is very flexible. If most of the ninjas were not limited by chakra and had to rest and restore chakra after a certain period of work, their projects could be completed faster. However, with multiple engineering teams working in 3 shifts, the completion of the project is also advancing rapidly. Until now, only the final opening of the gate to release water is left, and the project can be considered completely completed. Hello, Hiroshi, can you hear me? Yamashita said in the Den Mushi. After this period of adjustment, the communication range of the current Den Mushi can almost cover a radius of 100 miles, and the sound can only be heard on a specific channel. It is almost the same as a walkie-talkie in the previous life. Master Yamashita, I can hear you. I can hear you. Our Nohara engineering team is ready and can officially start the water supply ceremony. A clear voice came from the other end of the Den Mushi. Yamashita nodded, turned around and looked at Pin and Conan who were waiting on the side, and said, "It's ready. We can start the water flow ceremony at any time." After hearing this, even though Pin, the leader of the country, had seen many storms, he couldn't help but tremble. After all, this project was related to the lifeblood of the Rain Country, and was closely related to the lives of the people. Whether the Rain Country could completely change its current situation of natural disasters, poverty, and weakness for many years, depended on this dynasty. He took a deep breath, and then slowly but firmly uttered a few words. "Open the gates, release the water," Yamashita said to the Den Mushi. "Let the water flow through." Nohara engineering team has received it. The water flow is complete, and the equipment is operating normally. Miyamoto engineering team has received it. The water flow is complete, and the equipment is operating normally. Shiranu engineering team has received it. The water flow is complete, and the equipment is operating normally. A series of reports sounded from the Den Mushi, one after another, sonorous and firm, making everyone present feel excited. It was not until the 20 construction teams had opened the gates that Yamashita finally smiled as if relieved, and said to Pain, "Fortunately, we have fulfilled our mission. All canals are connected. Although the artificial lake has not yet completed the water storage, we can already draw a conclusion in advance. The rectification of the water veins in the Rain Country is completely completed." Chapter 47 Taking over the construction of the Rain Country. In the distance, the turbulent water rushed along the constructed river channel. Everyone stood by the artificial lake, watching the water from the canal gradually fill the artificial lake. Whether it was the workers who participated in the construction or the Rain Country ninjas who protected the safety of these people, they couldn't help but feel happy and proud. This huge project was completed under their witness, or built by their own hands. This kind of project that benefits the present and the future is something to be proud of, even if you participate in it, or just witness its completion. When you are old, you can proudly say to your children and grandchildren, "Do you know the artificial lake in the Rain Country? I built it." Report. The first artificial lake is 70% filled. The second artificial lake is 50% filled. The water level of the Holy Lake has dropped by more than 50%. The water levels of the three large lakes have initially reached a balanced state, and the expected state of the project has been initially completed. Please give instructions. In the Den Mushi, reports rang out, and the reports were basically good news. When the last report ended, Yamashita couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, smiled, and said to the Den Mushi, "Proceed as planned." Then, he turned around and looked at Pain and Conan, who were also somewhat happy, and said, "Fortunately, we have fulfilled our mission. The project has been basically completed. From now on, the floods in the Rain Country can be greatly alleviated. From now on, the people of the Rain Country will no longer suffer from natural disasters as before." Pain listened, and even the puppet's eyes seemed to be a little moist. He nodded solemnly and said, "I really trouble you, Mr. Yamashita. There is no need to say more about mutually beneficial matters." Yamashita answered nonchalantly, and then said to the Den Mushi, "Proceed as planned." Yes. Next, it's about operating these three artificial lakes and canals. As a country bordering three major countries, it's actually quite convenient for the Rain Country to engage in trade. Now the canals are almost all over your Rain Country, and it will be much more convenient to transport goods. If you can seize this opportunity, then it's not impossible for the Rain Country to take advantage of the situation. Of course, the premise of all this is that you have the strength to protect yourself. Like our soup country, if it hadn't taken advantage of the long lost peace in the ninja world and continued to recruit soldiers to protect itself while rising, it would have probably become Konoha's money bag. We can only take whatever they ask of us. Yamashita Kenji said, and roughly explained the country's future development plan to the other party. Of course, the latter statement of development strength actually does not exist for the Rain Country. To be frank, the current Rain Country, in terms of strength alone, is not inferior to any major ninja village. Nagato's 6 Paths of Pain alone can single-handedly defeat any existing ninja village in this world. Konoha village can't stop it. Not to mention those people in Akatsuki who have never shown their faces. As far as Yamashita can remember, Akatsuki now has at least Hashigaki Kisame, Uchiha Itachi, and Sasori. Excluding Kakuzu, who was recruited by him in advance, Hidden, who was captured by him, and Idara, who is not sure whether he has joined Akatsuki. The members of Akatsuki are basically all there. If there is a chance in the future, he can ask Nagato if he can lend those 3 talents to him. Of course, not now, when the other party knows about his goodness. He should agree to his request. Is that so? Pain thought about what Yamashita said, then shook his head and said, "Mr. Yamashita, although I have some ideas about the development of our Rain Country, they are a bit naive and have never been put into practice, so they are a bit like castles in the air. So, I hope to hire your company to guide the future development of our Rain Country and help us complete the transformation." Yamashita looked at Pain in surprise and asked, "Have you really thought about it, Mr. Pain? If you do this, it is basically equivalent to handing over the interests of your country to our company. Our company is not a charity company. If we can get any profit, we will definitely not be soft-handed. It doesn't matter." Pain looked at the people who were waving their hands happily on both sides of the riverbank and said, "If I remember correctly, Mr. Yamashita once said that your company's vision is to seek benefits for the people of the ninja world, right? The people of my Rain Country are also the people of the ninja world, aren't they? You can take all the benefits of this Rain Country, as long as you let the people of my Rain Country live as happily as the people of your soup country." Yamashita said, "Not for power, not for profit. What you want, is it really just to let the people of Rain Country live a good life?" Pin said, more than that, I also hope that there will be no more wars in this ninja world, and everyone can live and grow happily in a peaceful environment. Yamashita understood in his heart that this was indeed what Pin, or Nagato, thought. In this comic, most of the villains, including Nagato and Uchiha Madara, are not villains in the actual sense. What they pursue is actually what most positive characters are pursuing. That is, they want this long war-torn land to be peaceful forever. Of course, this does not include Uchiha Obito. This guy is a pure psychopath and a love brain. It's just that the collision of different concepts of peace has led to so many stories later. Nagato is now willing to give up all the interests of the entire Rain country. To some extent, it can be regarded as practicing his own ideas. Of course, all this is also based on the premise that Nagato has absolute confidence in his own strength and feels that he can control the situation. Just like his predecessor Hanzo, in the early stages of Akatsuki's development, the two sides could cooperate harmoniously, but when Akatsuki grew to a size that threatened his rule, he wanted to destroy it. Of course, as long as he really did what he promised the other party, Nagato would not care about the mere monetary benefits. This is also good, allowing him to make an overall plan for the development of the Rain country, and it will also allow him to rise at the fastest speed. No problem, I can promise you that, as long as our company takes over the development of the Rain country, then the people of the Rain country will definitely be able to live a good life, Yamashita said. Pain nodded and was about to say something, but suddenly, the dendenmushi in Yamashita's hand made a harsh sound. Mr. Yamashita. A huge explosion occurred on the shore of the second artificial lake. The lake structure was destroyed, the east wall almost collapsed, and the dam collapsed. The lake has burst. Chapter 48 Water. 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 The man's voice was very hoarse, as if he was hysterical, but at this moment, no one could accuse him of this impoliteness. Yamashita was stunned for a moment, and then without thinking, he directly performed the Flying Thunder God technique, and came to the range of the second artificial lake. When he arrived at the target place, he looked around, and saw a scene, where a flood had destroyed the dam, and rushed towards the low place. How could it be so? Yamashita thought of the ninja who had hidden among the construction workers before. Could it be that those people had such an idea? At the moment, when the dam was successfully built, they would blow up the dam, and bring a flood to the Rain country? Exclamation mark. But why? Would the suffering of the Rain country bring benefits to any country? Or simply, they didn't want the Rain country to develop through these continuous canals and artificial lakes, and just wanted the people to live in dire straits forever. Yamashita Kenji's face was ferocious, and for the first time he wanted to destroy something. From this point of view, some of Nagato's ideas are still reasonable. If those high-ranking people are not allowed to feel the heart-wrenching pain, they will not know the value of peace. Of course, now is not the time to think about these things. For now, we still have to solve the current situation. Seeing the flood coming in, it will reach the place where residents gather in a blink of an eye. Yamashita gritted his teeth and once again deeply felt his powerlessness. Although his strength is now ranked among the top in the ninja world, even Nagato can hardly defeat him, but he lacks means such as Wooden Man technique and Susanoo to change the status quo. All ninjas, the time when the company needs you has come. Behind you are the people of the Rain country. If you take a step back, tens of thousands of families will be displaced. I won't say anything else. Now, I need everyone to work together to perform Earth Escape Ninjutsu to stop the flood and give those people time to evacuate. Everyone, please, Yamashita said, and then flashed again and came to the nearest gathering place. Then he made a seal with his hands, and white mist exploded in the field. When the white mist cleared, nearly 100 figures of Yamashita Kenji appeared on the field. This was the maximum number of people he could perform the multiple shadow clone technique so far. If there was one more, he might die due to chakra exhaustion, and the feedback after the clone disappeared would also take his life. But now, obviously, he couldn't care less. Nearly 100 figures frantically performed the Flying Thunder God technique to move the people in the gathering place to a safe place. However, compared with the tens of thousands of people, Yamashita's speed was somewhat dwarfed. Moreover, he couldn't use up all his chakra. Although he had a sense of justice in his heart, He was definitely not willing to die. At this moment, the raging water had already hit him. Earth escape, earth flow wall. Hundreds of the same voices rang out like a huge bell. Then, in front of the raging flood, a nearly 100-meter high earth wall rose from the ground, like a natural moat, blocking the flood. Bang! A dull collision sound was heard, and the surging water hit the earth wall fiercely, shaking the earth wall, and making it shaky. However, he blocked the impact of the water. Good. Yamashita couldn't help but cheer, and was full of praise for this ninjutsu performed by hundreds of ninjas. This kind of scene of concerted efforts is not common in the ninja world. At least in Yamashita's impression, only in the Fourth War, when hundreds of ninjas performed water escape and Uchiha Madara's water escape, can it be compared. However, this natural disaster flood is not necessarily inferior to Uchiha Madara. After being hit, the earth wall was already shaky, and those ninjas who performed this technique had very little chakra left, and they could not use it again, except to maintain their most basic actions. After the flood was blocked, it merged with the subsequent water flow, and turned back again, rushing towards the earth wall again as violently as before. This time, even Yamashita was a little desperate. It can't be blocked. It can't be blocked at all. Being able to block it for a moment is already a miracle unique to this ninja world. Yamashita seemed to have seen the tragic scene of the collapse of the earth wall, thousands of people displaced and buried in the water. However, at this moment, Yamashita seemed to feel that the surging flood seemed to have slowed down a lot. Just like that, it slowed down out of thin air. Yamashita looked far away, but found that on the top of the wave, a strange looking person seemed to be surfing. No, the surfboard seemed to be a strange creature with a big mouth. Is that person Hashiga Kikasame? This rebel ninja from the Hidden Mist village has extraordinary attainments in water escape. If it were him, he would indeed be able to slow down the impact of the flood. But this was not enough. Snap! A crisp sound rang out, and Pin landed on the top of the earth wall, pressing his right hand on it. The next moment, a dark film spread out from his palm and quickly enveloped the entire huge earth wall. Boom. The flood and the earth wall collided again, but this time, the earth wall seemed to become softer and tougher. Under the impact of the flood, it was once again retained. Bang, bang. Then, smoke exploded again in the field. When the smoke dissipated, two huge monsters appeared on the field. A vicious dog with 3 heads and a one-horned rhinoceros. These two guys were 100 meters long, almost as tall as the earth wall. As soon as they appeared, they directly hit the earth wall, and then exerted force with their feet, and actually pushed the earth wall back against the direction of the water flow. Bang, bang, bang. The flood was pushed back step by step. This might of heaven was actually blocked by Nagato alone. Then, a group of ninjas from the rain country rushed over, and organized the people, to evacuate in an orderly manner. Seeing that the bad situation had been contained, Yamashita couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief and lifted the multiple shadow clone technique. However, a feeling of weakness and fatigue came over him, causing him to tremble and almost fall to the ground. Fortunately, his physique was good, and after a moment of breathing, he had recovered. Then, he looked at Nagato, who was fighting the flood over there, with a serious expression. Although it seemed that the flood had been contained, in fact, this was by no means a long-term solution. Even if the earth wall had been reinforced, it was already shaky under repeated impacts. Finally, under another impact, the earth wall completely collapsed. The surging flood rushed out and rushed downstream. Chibaku Tensei. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Courage and Faith. Pin's voice sounded calmly, but it was like thunder from the ground, exploding a thunder in the ears of everyone present. But the feeling of the mountain was different. Unlike others, he knew what these 4 words represented, and he did not expect that Pin would use this ninjutsu at this time. But from Pin's palm, a black ball slowly floated up. The ball floated on the surging sea water, like a black hole, dark and deep, making people afraid. The next moment, just as the water rushed past, a terrifying suction suddenly erupted from the black ball. causing the momentum of the rushing water to stagnate, and then it seemed as if it was torn by some huge force, and all the water flow rolled back and gathered towards the black ball. A strange scene suddenly appeared in the field, like the sky rolling back. The black ball gathered all the flowing water around itself, forming a huge water ball, and slowly rose into the air, but after a moment, it had risen to the sky. A large amount of water was attracted away, and the originally turbulent water became much smaller, and the momentum, that seemed to be overwhelming, was also slowed down a lot. In this way, Kasame, who was controlling the water flow in the water, was more comfortable. He urged the chakra to make the water flow under his feet slightly change direction, and guided the water to an open space next to it. The most turbulent wave of water was blocked, and things would be easier to do afterwards. The construction team at the foot of the mountain had made corresponding repairs to the damaged area. Although it was not as good as before, at least for a while, the same thing would not happen again. Looking at the dam and walls that had just been built and then destroyed, they were slowly restored under the repairs of the construction team. The face of the mountain was very ugly. These are all their hard work. As a result, before the project could really exert its power, it was sabotaged by someone's conspiracy. In fact, at the beginning of the construction of this project, they had already considered the possibility that the project would be destroyed. So before the construction, they had already made a plan and designed it to be very strong. Even if an ordinary Jonin used ninjutsu, it would take a long time to cause damage to the building. But this time the damage was different. After preliminary analysis, the explosion did not occur outside the wall, but was pre-buried inside the wall. The explosion occurred from the inside, which caused the building to collapse directly. Obviously, the opponent's attack was premeditated and prepared at the beginning of construction. It was also their fault for negligent management, which gave the opponent an opportunity to take advantage of. Looking at the busy workers, Yamashita turned to look at Pain and said, "The repair of the gap here will not take too much time. The gap can be filled in a few days. I have sent the remaining construction teams to build flood discharge measures in the flood discharge area. Although there was no casualty in this attack, it is a reminder for us. Although these engineering buildings are strong enough, if you think they are safe and sound, you are afraid." Pain nodded, but Kasame, who was standing next to him, sneered disdainfully and said, "Oh, that's really interesting. In the future, leader, you don't have to do anything else. Just guard these engineering buildings. Really, in this ninja world, you actually dare to build this kind of building in your own country? This is tantamount to exposing your most fatal weakness to everyone. It is really stupid." Although Kasame's words were unpleasant to the ear, they spoke a cruel reality. Over the years, the ninja world has not built such a large project. Of course, there are reasons for insufficient technical capabilities. Similarly, such a project is like the lifeblood of a country. If it is targeted and destroyed by the enemy during the war, it is tantamount to cutting off one's own arm. Because of such concerns, although the technical capabilities of the ninja world are not that low, there are few such projects. What the gentleman said is very right, Yamashita said, but it is also not advisable to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Such a project may be targeted by others, but at the same time, it stands here. Not only can it bring tangible benefits to the people of the country, but it is also a monument, representing that the Rain country is not content with the status quo and wants to make changes. In the future, it may be a spiritual totem for the people of the Rain country. As long as these buildings are here, even if they are destroyed by people with bad intentions in the future, the people can gather together again and repair these buildings. Kasame looked at Yamashita with some surprise, and he couldn't understand why the other party would be so convinced of such a thing that had never been verified, as if he had verified it with his own eyes. How could he know that Yamashita had indeed seen such a country, or rather, such a group of people on such a land? Although they were trapped internally and externally, and the fire was boiling, they were still indomitable. In the heavy blockade, in the ruins, they rebuilt one miracle after another that attracted worldwide attention. Because they can do it, these people can definitely do it too. You guys, what you said is too outrageous, isn't it? Kasame said, and then, as if he had thought of something, he spread his hands and said, "It doesn't matter. It's normal for a kid like you to be a little naive. Just live in your own dream. He looked at Pain and said, "Chief, if there is nothing else here, I will leave first. Mr. Itachi is still waiting for me." After that, he flashed away. "Thank you for your hard work during this period, Mr. Yamashita," Pain said to Yamashita. Yamashita waved his hands and said, "That's nothing. It's what we should do." "But Mr. Pain, do you know who the attackers are this time? It would be too troublesome to let such villains hide in the dark." Hearing this, Pain's face became gloomy and said, "We have figured out the other party's identity. Although the other party's conspiracy succeeded this time, that kind of explosion requires someone to activate it. And before the flood control, we have caught the person who detonated it. Although the other party is very stubborn, I have my own way. I have already learned his true identity." At this point, Pain couldn't help but grit his teeth. "Those are ninjas from the Iwagakure village. They were assigned by that Sachiki Janoki to come and destroy our buildings. They want our own country to continue to rely on the resources of the Earth country in order to better control us. Don't worry, Mr. Yamashita, there will be no such thing again. This is the hatred of the whole country. We, the Rain country, will make them pay the price they deserve." Chapter 50 project completed. The mastermind behind the scene turned out to be the Iwagakure village, which was somewhat different from what Yamashita had speculated. After all, this village was not very prominent in the original work, and only a few powerful ninjas were relatively well known. However, if you think about it again, you can also speculate some clues from what happened before. Although the explosion from the inside can indeed destroy the dam, if you want to destroy it to such an extent, you can't just randomly choose the detonation site. It requires accurate calculations and a thorough understanding of some of the weaknesses of the project's nodes. I think that in this ninja world, apart from their Yamashita Industrial Company, only the Iwagakure village ninjas who are good at Earth escape can find those locations so accurately. And now, Yamashita saw the hatred in Pain's eyes that was as real as substance. I think the disaster that the Iwagakure village will suffer next will not be less than what the Konoha village suffered in the original work. I believe that the furious Nagato should give the Iwagakure village a big surprise. However, after thinking about it, he still said, "After all, those ordinary villagers of the Hidden Rock village are innocent. If you want to carry out any targeted actions, try to avoid the loss of these people." Pain glanced at Yamashita indifferently and said, "Since they have accepted the protection of the Hidden Rock village, they should be aware of being affected by the Hidden Rock village. This is what they should do. They want to get benefits, but don't want to suffer harm. How can there be such a good thing in this world?" After this, Yamashita Kenji had nothing to say. Although it was very cruel, in fact, this was fair. What is the misfortune that does not extend to the family? This is the words of the saint. The misfortune does not extend to the family. The premise is that wisdom does not extend to the family. Just like the cases that Yamashita Kenji had seen in his previous life, parents did all kinds of evil and gave their children everything they should enjoy, and then they were arrested, but their children escaped unscathed. Is this fair? Absolutely not. This is the greatest unfairness. Since Nagato has such thoughts, Yamashita has nothing to say. After greeting each other, the two separated. Yamashita looked at the workers who were repairing the gap in full swing, and after arranging the next part of the work, he turned his attention to the system panel. Task in progress, Wind Country South 2 North Water Diversion Project, completion 29%, 32%. His task progress finally climbed. It seems that the reason why his task progress had been stuck at 29% before was because there were such hidden dangers in the project they built. Now that the hidden dangers have erupted, the project progress can be improved normally. In this way, there should be no hidden dangers buried by the other party in these buildings. Then, he looked at the system reward that had just been issued. Congratulations to the host for the project progress exceeding 30%. Reward, Super Advanced Puppet Masterful Skills. Finally, he obtained all the skills of the puppet secret technique. From now on, he is the most powerful puppet master in this ninja world from ancient times to the present. He couldn't wait to extract the skill directly. A stream of information flashed in his mind, and in a flash, Yamashita mastered the last part of the puppet master's skills. When he opened his eyes again, his aura was different. If the first two parts of the puppet master's skills were still in the mortal realm and were secret techniques that could be created by the ninjas in the ninja world, then the last part of the puppet master's skills had completely left the mortal realm and reached another level. It could be called a fairy level skill. Such a skill could completely elevate his strength to another level. If he prepared for himself, then he might not be unable to eliminate the earth-shaking flood that had overturned the world before. Great. He couldn't help but sigh, and was even more looking forward to what kind of reward he would get when he pushed the project progress to 40%, 50%, or even 100%. In the past, he actually felt a little depressed. Although his strength was already top-notch in this world, he would still feel a little powerless when facing Uchiha Madara and Kaguya Otsutsuki behind him. Not to mention, when time moved forward to more than a decade later, the alien Otsutsuki clan that were flying all over the sky. By that time, even ordinary cage level strength would not be enough, and they would not even be able to be a soldier. However, now, the rewards given to him by the system in the past few times have already surprised him enough. If he continues to advance the task, he may not be able to confront those guys head on. Of course, before that, some guys who hinder his mission should be sent to the ground as soon as possible. Not only the land of Earth, but also the other major countries in the ninja world may not be so peaceful. If he wants to build more super projects in the ninja world, he will inevitably have to argue with those countries in the future. It seems that he should make plans in this regard early in the future, and use his ability to foresee and avoid some avoidable conflicts and tragedies, so that he can better carry out his own infrastructure. In the following days, the project was still carried out according to plan. When the engineering team repaired the gap in the dam, they went directly to the flood discharge area that had been scheduled to continue the construction of flood discharge facilities here. Nagato had already relocated all the people in this area to other places. During the relocation process, it was really as Nagato said. No one felt reluctant to leave their hometown. Yamashita didn't know whether he should be happy or sad. But no matter what, this matter was still very beneficial to them, so he didn't have to say anything. The project of this flood discharge area was not as big as the previous project of building an artificial lake, dam and canal. It was just a little trivial. The location of the project was scattered all over the flood discharge area. Therefore, their engineering team actually spent most of their time on the road and did not spend much time on construction. However, no matter how scattered the project was, under the quality of the average tunin of Yamashita's engineering team, it was also in the end. The completion of this part of the project also indicated that the entire project in the Rain Country was completed. The next task was to open an opening on Shanjan Mountain to guide the water of the Rain Country into the Wind Country. During this period of time, the artificial lakes, dams and canals have been operating normally, providing great convenience to the people of the Rain Country. Walking on the streets, they can see that the clouds on the faces of the people have obviously cleared up, and they are smiling, as if they have finally seen hope after a hard life. At this time, news from the Land Country has also come. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.